Maybe Eric can help.
Hello. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Climbing the Ladder, episode 40. Our bonus coverage this week. I don't think we've ever done 2 episodes in 1 week, have we, John?
No, I feel like I was just here the other day.
well, you were.
Was.
Well, for those of you just tuning in, never seen the show, I know there's a lot of folks probably from the League of Legends community. This show is a podcast that we talk about just the various segments in the industry, all the good, bad, and ugly that goes on in the esports industry. And today we're going to be focusing a little bit more on the ugly side of things, which we don't do too much of on the show. So it'd be a good kind of mixing it up a little bit. And we have the pleasure of welcoming 2 guests today on the show. First being Mr. Stephen Bonnell II, a.k.a. Destiny. What's up, Stephen?
What's up? I'm your biggest fan.
Thanks, man. Thanks. And secondly, I want to welcome Dmytro Filipchuk, a.k.a. Dimaga, StarCraft 2 pro gamer. What's up?
Hey.
Hey. He's our favorite Ukrainian, right? So what have you guys been up to? John?
Nothing since the last time we talked, just a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Nothing really, actually.
You been reading anything online, like on Reddit or anything like that?
I've been reading some stuff on Reddit. There's been some drama going on.
Yeah. Me too. Like, Steven, you been reading or writing anything recently?
Yeah, I just kind of do what I do best. Stir up some drama. Destroying companies and games, same old.
Nice. All right, so let's get to it. Let's not waste any time, and let's start talking about kind of the topic of the show. So what we're going to talk about today is really unprofessionalism in the esports industry. And unprofessionalism is a very vague term, and I know it is, all right? But particularly, we want to talk about organizations not paying out. And in particular, speaking of Destiny and in his case, and even Dimaga here, we want to talk about Own3d, and even with Dimaga, just a little bit about just teams not paying out either. Destiny, I think all of you guys probably saw it yesterday. It made, I think, front page Reddit. So I think at least top 50 front page Reddit, I think, when I saw it. And it was all, Destiny posted a very elaborate post on his website about just his experience with Owned and just the problems that he's had about getting paid out. And Stephen, really appreciate you actually writing that. And I think a lot of the community probably does too, because the after effects have been a lot of other people really coming out with their own stories too. And so I kind of want to start off with that. Obviously you laid out a bunch of stuff in that post, but wanted to start off by asking you if there's anything that you kind of left out in hindsight now.
I mean, in terms of their dealings with me, I think pretty much everything was there. There's some other stuff that I know about, in terms of it affecting other people, but in terms of just their personal dealings with me, I think I pretty much laid everything out.
If you can, do you mind summing up the whole thing in about a minute or two? I mean, just as best you can, just not really hashing out everything, but for those that don't know. I was approached by Own, I think, in November of last year, the year before last year. They promised rainbows and unicorns. I signed up for rainbows and unicorns. The first 2 months were pretty good. They were, rolling out a bunch of new features. They rolled out a new chat system. They got their subscription system online. Their server infrastructure was way better than Twitch's, which is why everybody preferred Owned when it came to watching European stuff. I don't know if that is still alive and well in the gaming community, but I know a lot of people would rag on Twitch a lot for their European servers. Although apparently Twitch has expanded on that now, which is good. But talk about rainbows and unicorns. I kind of want to get down to details. You know what I mean? Because what were the main things that enticed you?
First let me just summarize what happened, I guess, to the people, before we get too much into that. Basically, I signed up for them. I was promised a lot of cool stuff, and as the months kind of droned on, it became obvious that they weren't able to deliver on everything. Paychecks became increasingly later and later and later. Money that I was promised, would come 4 to 5 to 6 months late. A whole bunch of problems plagued their servers. Issues with transcodes was this prevalent problem that I had to deal with forever, And anybody that's watched me, I got so many emails that I'd answer, and it was so annoying because I can't watch your stream on 480p or 360, and there's nothing I can do about it. So I mean, basically got to the point to where
come December, I had to leave because the problems were just too great. So yeah, that was my that was my experience with the company.
Okay.
And then
I mean,
you asked what were rainbows and unicorns?
yes.
So
what got you to
I was
switch from Twitch to Owned originally?
When I was approached, I was promised a very large cash incentive, plus a budget to run a tournament or an event of some kind, and then higher advertising, CPM, whatever that stuff means. That's pretty much what I was promised when I signed up with them.
Did they offer you to have any input in some of the changes that they were making? Because I know that they were bringing a lot of gamers on. They were paying people to come over and basically offering them kind of a say in how things might turn out. Some new features and whatnot. Did they ever ask your opinion on any of that?
Yeah, of course. All the new big personalities that they brought over, they tried to get their opinion on things that they want to change and whatnot. I was kind of a special case because I was their first StarCraft guy, their first big StarCraft guy. They were primarily known for League of Legends, so they might have paid attention more to me than most just because of that position. But to the best of my knowledge, I think that they were pretty receptive to a lot of people offering criticism and new changes and whatnot.
What was this opportunity when you decided to take this, was it strictly based on money opportunity, or were you kind of like, hey, I get to be a part of making something better, or was it strictly based on money?
Oh no, it's all about the money, man. You have to be self-interested in anything you go into. If you're not, then you're being incredibly naive. In my opinion, that's like I have a really negative, cynical worldview. But yeah, that's how I feel. So the way that it worked was, I had been streaming on Twitch for a long time. Okay, I didn't know anything else. Twitch was the world to me, I'm not bashing Twitch or anything, but Owned was just starting to get kind of big. They had a big foothold in the League of Legends scene. You could say they had a monopoly in the League of Legends scene. Really, everybody from League streamed over there. When they approached me, they offered me a pretty large cash incentive. Like I would say, like just in cash on top of advertising, it was an amount between $10,000 and $30,000. Like just sign up and stream with them, like right off the bat. So there was that, which I'd never heard of that from Twitch before. And then there was the advertising rates that they spoke of were supposedly much higher than what Twitch was offering. And I talked to like George and a couple of the Hotshot GG. I'm sorry, that was really dumb. I talked to a few of the big guys who streamed on Owned at the time, and it seemed like the numbers added up when I was kind of running through things. So after hearing all about like what they could offer me and the kind of company that they had and all of that, I kind of started talking to Twitch about how I was thinking of changing, and I didn't want to do like the whole bidding wars and whatnot because it feels kind of sleazy to me. And all of a sudden Twitch was ready to like almost bump what they were offering me up like 50 to 60%. And that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, I guess. Like, so I've been streaming with you guys for a year, and then because I'm ready to leave, now all of a sudden you're ready to like grossly bump up the amount of money you can have. Like it's kind of do you understand?
Well, it's business.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
Yeah,
man.
that's the biggest downsides of a monopoly. It's funny, all of the Econ 101 things that are reinforced, like as you dive more into this stuff. But yeah, it's just kind of the nature of the beast, I guess. But I guess I was still naive at the time. It left a bit of a bad taste in my mouth. You really have to be a Sherlock Holmes when it comes to wading through the rivers of bullshit. Like, I have heard so many bad things about Twitch TV. I've heard so many bad things about Own.tv that like it's really hard to pick out what's true and what's false when there's zero transparency from both companies and nobody really wants to show you their books, to kind of prove their worth or anything. And understandably so. Like, I can understand why they would want to do that, but. I guess at the time it seemed like a good decision to switch, and as things have panned out, it's probably not so much a good decision. Obviously, hindsight is 20/20.
So when you were talking about the kind of flat rate they were promising you, this flat 10 to 30,000 you were mentioning, was that a one-time payment or was it broken down into a year? Like just they would pay a 12th of it every month?
Originally, I was under the assumption that it was a one-time payment. In the contract, it specified that they would pay me 50% of it within the first 1 to 3 months. I'm not sure, but it ended up then breaking it into 3 payments that they paid me over the course of April, May, and June, I think. Which I guess is better than nothing. But
when that happened,
okay, that's a lot.
When it was in the contract one way, and then they, how did it come about early in the process? Were any red flags raised? Because it sounds like something it was in the contract that it was supposed to be paid within a certain amount of time, and then it got kind of spread out. And you were probably in the same boat. A lot of people were like, well, at least I'm getting paid. At least they're making an effort. I mean, was there anything in the beginning that gave you any red flags that maybe this wasn't the right direction, or that these guys weren't quite as professional as you thought maybe they were?
Unfortunately, there are no such things as red flags in esports, because we really have nothing to compare it to. It would be nice to say, it would be really cool if I could say, yeah, there were a lot of red flags going up because they didn't strictly adhere to their contracts. But come on, John, there's nobody in esports that strictly adheres to their contract. There's nobody that does that. So it's really hard to say if I were to isolate it into a vacuum, were there red flags? Yeah, definitely. Late payment started probably in the 3rd or 4th month. A lot of the stuff that they promised was coming really late, getting the subscription service up, getting the new chat system up. There were kind of red flags like that, but why would I be less lenient with them than I ever was when Twitch was starting up,
Right. Oh, Dima, by the way, just jump in whenever you want. This is kind of pretty open. It's not interview style here. This is just...
I'm not fast in English, so
it's all good. It's all good.
I'm trying to catching up, but it's okay.
Dima's still concentrating on the first part of the discussion.
Of course.
But you brought up a good point there, Stephen. I mean, it's an assumed thing that esports organizations don't adhere to contracts. I mean, that's a huge issue. I mean, what can we do about that? I mean, does there need to be more, legal lawyers being brought in to sue these things? No, I'm just saying. I mean, because it's kind of.
I'm not trying to Americanize this, but
yeah.
Who was the guy? It's oh my God, I should know who the quote is from, but it's freedom is 2 wolves and a lamb deciding what to eat for dinner, and liberty is a well-armed lamb. Second Amendment rights and stuff like that.
Okay, sure.
I guess the analogy that I'm trying to draw is contracts mean absolutely nothing in this industry if you can't enforce the contract. It would just be contracts in esports are kind of like having a whole bunch of laws made up in a country without policemen. To be honest, most people that get paid $200, $300 a month, if they only get paid travel, do you think Juan, if he gets screwed over by a team, Juan is going to know what he needs to do to go down to a courthouse to find a lawyer to press charges against a company that might not even have any assets located in the country? The whole process to get into the litigation is so expensive and so time-consuming, and there's so much that you have to know about who to talk to and who not to talk to not get screwed, that it really makes the entire idea of a contract kind of a joke, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, is the issue the actual contract itself, or the stuff that you're talking about? I mean, because I think a lot of these contracts are just, there's just a ton of holes in it that a lot of people just don't, a lot of these players, even some of these people representing players don't understand legalese, and they're just not that great at handling contracts. So
real quick before you answer that, Steve, I think it's really my fault, and I mean that seriously. It's my fault, and guys that have been in the industry for as long as I have, and have gone through this and not shared our experience with others because we were in fear of being blackballed out of the community completely. We didn't take the necessary steps to nip it in the bud early enough. I mean, when I worked at GGL and basically worked for a year and kept being told that I was going to get paid, don't worry, the check's in the mail, and like a sucker, I continued to do it, and then I didn't share that story really with anyone. At the time, obviously, we didn't have streaming like we do now, where I was able to share the story, and I'm not sure anyone would have cared or listened, because even today still there's so many people in this industry that just want to get involved, and unfortunately they'll do it for next to nothing. Companies know this, and they'll walk all over anyone they can, and they'll just throw out somebody and get someone new if they have to.
But that doesn't have anything to do with just these paper skeleton contracts that are being thrown out there that have holes in it. I mean, that's...
I signed contracts too, but I didn't do anything about it, and I didn't tell anyone later. I didn't warn anyone really. And I think had we done some of this early in the process, we might not be in this hole today. I don't know.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I appreciate, I guess you're trying to take a little bit of responsibility for where we are now. But if you really want to blame anybody, it's a big I guess it's a big social history about how much it costs, for litigation and whatnot. The problems are so far-reaching outside of our little industry that it's really not something that any single person can take responsibility for. Again, there are always a few prime directives that I operate under, and that's if somebody has the ability to screw you, they will every time. You should never ever ever think anything different. especially if you're putting your own financial well-being on the line. And I think the same is true for this industry. Like, people can come into this industry, they can make whatever contracts they want. Look at what Machinima was doing recently, making life commitment contracts. Like, you can't do that. Signing contracts into perpetuity, that wouldn't hold up in any courthouse anywhere. But people know that, but they don't really care because nobody's going to actually pay the money required to get a lawyer. Like, just the retainer for a lawyer involved in that kind of a case where you have to bring in so many expert witnesses just to explain TCP IP stack to the jury is so expensive that nobody in their right mind is going to pursue it over a contract that's worth less than like one semester of a college tuition, like a public university. Like, it's just the money side of the whole lawyer process is just so expensive that it makes the whole idea of a contract kind of a joke without anybody to police them.
Okay, well, so actually, I'm just getting a message by Husky, and he actually wants to jump on here if you guys don't mind having Mr. Husky on. Is that cool with everybody?
I don't
sure.
really I would prefer HD. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, man. That's harsh. Well, it wasn't prepared for this guy, so the overlays are going to be a little bit weirded out here, but...
Hey,
Mike, what's up?
Hey.
what's going on? Do you want my web camera, or am I too horrifying for the stream?
Well, we're not prepared for it overlay-wise, so it's all good. It's all good.
Okay.
Even though you're handsome. You're so handsome, dude. But
Oh, well, only my mother tells me that. But anyways, I caught the majority of what you guys were saying. I kind of cut off at mentioning Machinima.
Oh, I see how it is.
I was getting the call.
Oh, man. Okay. Understood. But, yeah, so I know you don't have much time, so I figured we just have you come on really quick and kind of get your thoughts on just this whole talk about contracts, or, they don't hold up at all, especially in this industry. So this type of I guess behavior is going to be happening all the time.
Yeah, and in my eyes, obviously I'm kind of known for StarCraft. That's always been my main game and everything. But also, one of the things I really have been focusing on and working on behind the scenes for, I think, almost 4 years now, is dealing with companies who get some sort of contract signed in new media. So whether you are a StarCraft player, a League player, a YouTuber, a live streamer, you have a podcast or a show like this, there's always companies out there who are trying to get you to sign something. And it used to be, at least when I first started StarCraft, it was really, really, really bad. Like, there was a company, one of the first ones who approached me 3 or 4 years ago, who was like, all right, well, we want to pay you below minimum wage to do 60 hours of work a week, and also our company doesn't have a website yet. So those were the kind of things that I've been dealing with. And then shortly after that, I was approached by lots of different companies. I don't need to name drop everything, but one of the things that I've focused on over the last couple years is looking at all those contracts, and I'm gonna have to disagree with Steven a little bit, although I do know we have completely different situations, so I can't even say that we're comparable. But back when I was streaming or uploading videos, like right when StarCraft 2 came out, it's a no-brainer that's when my channel was most popular. That's when StarCraft was most popular, because it's a new game. That's how it goes. And so back then I was getting around 16 million views per month, and anyone who knows anything about CPMs, that's a nice chunk of change to get. And what I could have done is sign with the companies, like Machinima has already been mentioned, but there's others who have these horrendous contracts. They're absolutely, like, if you tried to pull this on an actor, or you tried to pull this on anyone in entertainment, you are going to get blacklisted. Sorry, what?
Like what?
Yeah, what in particular are you
give us
talking
an
about?
idea.
So there's lots of different things in the contracts that are terrifying to me. Number one is the perpetuity, or whatever, the contracts that never end. Like, that's no. Like, you can't.
Can I bring up a really relevant situation? Although it might be really awkward, I understand if you don't want to comment. But did you hear about what was going on between Maker Studios and Ray William Johnson?
Yeah, and that's, I don't know all the details of that specific, just because that's such a high level, example, because he goes way back with Maker Studios. Even before Maker Studios was known as Maker Studios, he was friends with the founders, and so there's so much history and so much going on there that the posts you're going to see online from either side, like there's no way to know everything about that, and it's one of those things where I definitely didn't approve of how Maker Studios responded, but at the same time, there's been so much drama that I could have just like blasted out there, and that's not my style of doing. So anyway, so on both sides, I definitely think that was not handled very well, and that's a lot of that again has to do with the professionalism in the whole scene, in that, you know, maybe in like the NFL or something like that, you're going to be seeing this kind of drama, but that has to do with contracts that are worth like $50 million and stuff like that, whereas eSports is a lot smaller. So I think the important thing that I've been doing anyways is working behind the scenes, trying to make those ridiculous contracts not exist. So just a little history, the Machinima contracts and the other contracts out there, they offered them to me, and I would have made a very nice chunk of change signing right away. But in my mind, and I think, Steven, you might have been in kind of the same situation where you're looking at Twitch or Owned. In my situation, it was I can sign right away with this contract I don't like. I can like cash out and then be kind of screwed a year or two later, which is now what's happening to the people.
Kind of, but it wasn't exactly that easy too. And I don't know. I know that you were more involved in the YouTube side of things, but back then Twitch had a lot of problems too. And I heard a lot of things about Twitch too.
To be fair,
like,
I did
unless
too.
you have access to the books, and I'm talking like really relatively substantial stuff, you know, like for one small example, like a lot of people that I heard talking were saying things like Twitch is like such a financially insolvent company that they had to break off from Just TV. Like the whole idea behind the rebranding was that they were so bankrupt that they wouldn't be able to get any more loans for, you know, servers or to expand or anything unless they rebranded under a new name and like started like a new site. Like things like that. Like you hear so many random little things like that unless you like have access to like the CEOs themselves, like it's impossible to sort through that as a person. And then there were real problems that you could see from Twitch's end too, that talking to people like, hey, the CPMs don't add up to what they thought they were, or there's a lot of latency issues for things like Europe and whatnot. So it's not necessarily just a cash grab. Like I think that the whole issues between Twitch and Own, like way back a year ago, you could make legitimate arguments for either or.
I mean, the big thing is though, what were they paying you though at a relative time? Twitch at the moment. At the time.
I mean, it depends on who you ask. I mean, I had problems with late payments for a while. You know, nothing compared to not getting paid by Owned at the very end. But like, even when the Owned payments started to get late, like the thing that was going through my mind was, I guess we're catching up to, you know, Twitch terms in terms of being kind of late. As bad as it sounds, although apparently Twitch has gotten a lot better now. Although I don't know, I've only been with Twitch now for like a month a month or two. And so far it seems okay. But you know, just
right. So Mike, kind of question for you. I know one of the things that you mentioned in your posts, you know, on the Reddit thread, or you know, just that post about Destiny's, you know, original post, is that you know you kind of felt like the best thing for you to do was really do your own thing, you know, which you have now, right? With TGS and everything. Do you recommend that to other content producers or entertainers and that sort of thing? Is really just go with your, you know, just start your own thing, and especially people with big channels already.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I mean, it's such a sensitive thing because, you know, someone like Destiny, he's got a lot more on his plate than someone like when I was first starting, where I was living with my parents and doing YouTube. So it's definitely, every person's situation is completely different. My kind of mentality behind it, just to give a quick overview, is when my channel was big, it was like the fastest growing StarCraft channel, tons of views, whatever. I either could have signed with a company like Machinima or the other gaming networks at the time, or try and figure out something that is, you know, in the long term going to be more beneficial, not only for me, but also for gaming channels. And some of the stuff, yeah, you guys are asking for specifics from contracts. I know live streaming does this a lot, and I still disagree with it, is the whole idea of a flat rate CPM. To me, that is the worst model that anyone could propose ever. And basically, for those who don't understand what that means, is like Google has something called AdSense, which is if you make a fan site or you make a porn site or whatever and you want ads on it. I don't know if they do porn sites. I haven't looked into that. But you use their system, and it's completely automated, and it'll give you ads, and then you take a percentage of whatever the current CPM is. And CPM is how much you get paid per 1,000 views. So if it's $1 CPM, you get 1,000 ad views, you get $1, essentially is what it averages out to be. Yep. And so what companies like Hulu, for example, use CPMs. Any online stuff uses CPMs if there's ads involved. And so the reason I don't like flat rate CPM is because a company will tell you, all right, for every ad impression or every view, depending how they're doing it, we're going to give you $2 for every 1,000 views. And most of the contracts out there are set up in that way. And the problem with that, and I think that it creates a lot of problems, and it actually might be the root of the problem that Destiny had, is that the CPM market fluctuates. So in December, you could get CPMs as high as $10 or $15. In January, it might tank down to substantially lower than that. It fluctuates because in December, people advertise for Christmas. Companies are competitive for advertising, and that's how it works out. But when you have companies that are doing flat rate CPMs, your channel is basically it's kind of like working at McDonald's, where you go into that job, you're getting paid, say, $5 an hour, and yeah, if you work 80 hours, you're going to get paid more than if you worked 40 hours, but that rate doesn't change. And so what that means is companies like Owned, if they are selling your ads and they're kicking ass, they're selling your ads sometimes, it can be $15 or $20 CPM, and they're giving you 2 to 3, and then they're just keeping 17 CPM for really just selling ads. And number one, that sucks for the content creator because you're not growing with the market. And number two, if they're not selling ads, then say they're only able to sell a $1 CPM ad and they're paying you $3, they actually don't want you getting more views because every single view you get, they're losing money.
Yeah.
Right.
And so what that means is that they will literally cut off people from ever responding to them, which I think Destiny ran into, from ever helping them, ever encouraging them to grow. And that's where a lot of these problems, people don't realize how the back end works. That's where a lot of the problems come from, where they will lose thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on basically a channel or a stream that's bringing in tons of money. So it's definitely mind-blowing to me, and that's the one thing I would say has led to countless problems, and is just, as someone who has seen those contracts, has rejected those contracts, and has built a contract that's more based around percentages. So if CPMs are at 20, you get a percent of that, so you're always growing with the market. So anyways, it's just frustrating to me.
Do you think that, honestly, do you think that companies look at this industry and think they can get away with that? I mean, we understand that it's business and they have to make money. But do you think that some of these contracts are set up in such a way that they're thinking they're not going to even realize it? They'll probably won't even read it.
Yeah, and that's definitely something I was alluding to in the post I made on Destiny's thread, is that the main problem, or a lot of the problem is that these companies will come in, they'll be investment companies from Tokyo or China or anywhere around the world. They don't care if StarCraft is doing well. They don't care if, Destiny's ELO ranking is really high. Like, they don't give a shit about that. And the problem is that a lot of the people who sign these contracts are under 18. The companies are not enforcing having a legal guardian or parent review and co-sign on the contract.
Right.
And, I mean, you think of some of the players, like even just pro StarCraft players, they're like 14, 15, and, they're going to eventually grow up and be wiser, but they don't have people looking out for them. And it's...
Oh, go ahead.
So, and so basically, yeah, I mean, they not only think they can get away with it, but they absolutely can. And I mean, my Skype list is something like 200 people, the majority of which are YouTubers who I've had on there for 2 to 3 years now. And what they've learned over the years is that, companies will try and get them to sign really bad contracts right away because, someone who's 15 is like, oh, I can make $100 making videos. That's great. I mean, my friends don't do that. They work minimum wage, whatever. This is awesome. But unfortunately, that stifles the industry to an extreme degree. Because if you think about actors and entertainers and news anchors and all that, if they were stuck in these shitty contracts, like, it stifles everything for an extended period of time. So, I mean, as per usual, greed is a very nasty thing. And, yeah, to answer your question, they not only think they can, but I see it happening every day, and it's pretty bad.
Yeah, so I mean, we actually have a long-time professional player on the show right now in Dima. And so I want to ask you, Dima, Husky just mentioned that these players who are super young, right, and dealing with these companies directly, they obviously get seduced by just this amount of money that's actually not really good for them. So I kind of want to ask you, as a player, do you just kind of let the teams do all of that sort of negotiating and sort of thing with, you know, companies like Owned and Twitch, or do you have any direct involvement with that sort of thing?
As far as I know, like all teams take care of streaming, like so players even don't know real CPM the team gets. So I think like 15 years old players didn't know what they're doing. They just get salary from a team and maybe some bonus for streaming. They even don't know how much money they can earn with streaming and other stuff. So yeah, like that.
Yeah, I mean, and just Dima, just kind of for you to give just a little bit of background as to kind of your situation too, you know, in regards to Owned, and you know, yours is a little bit similar to if you guys watched Athene's video he made, I think yesterday, pertaining to, you know, Destiny's post. Your situation is a little bit different, right? Because your team is the one, you know, MTW at the time was the one that had a contract with Owned, right? So you really couldn't do anything about it, right?
It's like pretty long story as well, because like when I started streaming, it was Twitch with it was 2011 November and December. It was like the best months. Of course I didn't realize that it was like the best months. So I streamed and I earned more money than I had salary at that time. And team saw this and said, okay, we make better deal with Own It. And as I signed contract with my team MTW, I supposed to streaming at Own It for all like 2012. It's pretty long story overall because we had a lot of drama inside as well. So
right.
I even don't know what to start from. So 2012 I started streaming and Own It. It was not much less money than Twitch. It was like twice lesser. Of course, it was like viewers drop a little bit because I switched platforms and other stuff. But the main point was I like for streaming like for 3 months or 4 months, and they didn't get paid as far as I know a little bit. So and I said like the CPM and money I earn is like bullshit, guys. Go to Twitch. I was like always talking with my managers and boss of MTW, and we're still in good relationship, and say yeah okay, you're right. So like Own It pays that money. It was kind of okay, and we was thinking on switching to Twitch, but then come one guy from Own It and says, okay, I will take care of you and everything will be good. And we like believe, like my managers and bosses believe in, and they make a new contract with Own It, or like renew it, because in the beginning it was like not CPM, it was like another, I don't know exactly what it was, but it was like another
CPI maybe, something different. Yeah,
maybe something like that. So anyway, we stay at Own It, and I will start streaming again on Own It. Yeah, at the end, like going like a little bit faster of everything, I was streaming kind of a lot as well. So I was take money from first contract. It was kind of okay. It also was a lot of how is it called? They promise a lot as well. Like you will take for one streaming like for $150 or something. Even you don't make this money per stream. Even if it was streaming like $75 per stream, they must give us $150. But it wasn't like that. They was paid like only that was like 75 USD that I was streaming. Anyway, after new contract, we started streaming, and it was even worse. I don't know why, but it was even worse with money. Yeah, I began streaming even more, but the money was a little bit worse compared to before.
Did you complain? I mean, did you say something that this started to happen? I mean, you were constantly talking to them. Do you know that they ever went to Own?
Yeah, my manager's boss, and of course, guy from Own It, Oleg. He's like no Russians, and I was talking directly to him from time to time, and he says, this first 2 months, like it was January, and like all these 3 months is really bad and other stuff. I didn't know it, but I still was complaining. Okay. And and he was maybe right, because right now I know, January is really bad month after like December.
Mm-hmm.
Like January is like the horrible one compared to all others. So yeah. Anyway, I was talking with like all guys who was involved in this. They know all my situation always.
Okay. And you know, with your situation too, Dima, I mean, you basically didn't get paid either, right? And
yeah, the problem is like really complicated because like I have team. The team has contract to own it, and that was the biggest problem for me. Because at the end, I can say right now, MTW gets in the end of last year, they get a really like bad financial situation, and they said it to me like in 10 months, like what is months 10? Sorry, like in November, like yeah, early November, they said we have problems and we can't pay you salary for last 2 months of this year and contract. I said yeah, okay. Like I was trying to support them because like they start with like 2 years, they take me. And like promotion and all the stuff, my salary grows. I was really appreciated, and I still appreciated what they do to me. So anyway, about this, they said we have a problem and other stuff. I was trying to support them, and back to the streaming. That was a problem with streaming, Own It and Team. Because they owe me money, right? Like team own me money from streaming. At the end of all the story, Own It pay money to MTW, and somehow they managed to screw up, and they just said they failed. They like make mistakes, and they don't like get like they just don't pay me. So at the end of the story, like MTW fucked up a little bit, and I don't get a salary for streaming. But at the same time, Own It also fucked up to MTW because they didn't pay money for sponsorship money, as far as I know. There's like really
that's pretty.
Drama.
Okay, so
really
just
and other stuff. So like at the end, even MTW gets paid, right? Own It is good, MTW is bad, but at the end, I had the most
screwed,
damaged.
Yeah, exactly.
You
didn't get paid by either. And just to be clear, you know, I've you know, obviously I know a lot of players, and I know some contracts with teams involves giving all their stream revenue to the team, right? And they just basically get paid salary. But you're not one of those people. You were actually making stream revenue too from Owned. It wasn't just all coming from the standpoint of MTW just paying you salary. So you were making stream revenue. You were making money from Owned too.
I was get salary and streaming money.
Okay.
Separate.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Okay. Yeah. And how long have you not received money? Because just so everybody knows.
I didn't hear what you say. Sorry.
Just how long haven't you received money from either Owned
like for all 2012, I was streaming like near 9 months overall, maybe like six total months. I get paid only once. It was like for first 3 months. It was like near 1,500. Not near. It was 1,500 USD. It's like not that big money, maybe as like Destiny as Husky says, but for me it's like I'm living in Ukraine, and it's like kind of really big money. And for all other 6 months, it was near like near 4K, something like that. And I didn't get this money yet.
Wow.
I see. Wow. I mean, you know, again, like I'm glad that we're bringing up a lot of these issues with CPM and that sort of thing. And you know, Mike, you know, thanks for bringing that up. But you know, just not getting paid in general is just it's you know, that's the part that really gets to me. And because you know, again, like these guys, they have bills to pay, they have families to support, and you know, not getting paid for 5-6 months is just ridiculous.
Well, the worst part about that unprofessionalism is that there doesn't seem to be any communication. A lot of times they just drop off, or they keep giving you excuses. That's the part that really bothers me too.
Let me get Husky's video.
Experience, especially when I was first starting on YouTube, I was being told by companies that we can only pay you once every 3 months. We can only pay you quarterly, and a lot of people fell for that. And I did 5 seconds of Googling and found out that no, Google pays out every month. Like right on time, every single time. They've been doing that for 5+ years.
Wow.
And so there's companies that will literally lie to you and say, you know, it's impossible for us to pay you for X, Y, and Z reason. And I've learned, I mean, that's kind of why I went off and did the Game Station, which that is not an ideal situation for everyone. Like, you know, Dimaga here, he's not going to go off and start a live streaming website because he's a pro gamer. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So there's definitely, at least what I do is I get a lot more aggressive with how I deal with that. When I had a company who told me, you know, we can only pay you once every 3 months, I did the research and I came back to them and said, no, Google pays out for YouTube ad revenue every single month. And they told me, and then they admitted to me that they don't have an accounting department in place to be able to pay every single month. And I had a recent experience with Twitch where, in all honesty, they didn't pay me for my last month of streaming. But the difference is that I texted them one text, and I had the check in my hand, even though they had forgotten to send it. I had the check in my hand 3 days later. So, you know, sometimes companies will make mistakes, and I'm not saying Twitch has been perfect at all. I've had better experiences with them than other companies, just personally. But, you know, a lot of it is there's got to be mistakes, and that's fine. But how the companies are dealing with it, and if you let them get away with lying to you, it's only going to get worse from here on out. So someone like Dimaga, who had been live streaming for so long, and, you know, he just got shafted for a long time. And, you know, whether it's $2 or, you know, $10,000, you can't let a company not pay you for any reason. And what I've found is if you pressure them on the contract, and so say Steven had a contract with Own that says you can't stream with anyone else, which I always think is stupid anyways, but if that's what it was, if they don't pay you, it's definitely easy to scare them, at least I've found, and just do your own thing, because at the end of the day, a lot of these companies are so shitty that even they don't have good legal representation, and it's just kind of like a shit show for
I was just going to say that a lot of these companies are set up not really as companies.
Yeah.
They're just a group of guys that get together and come up with some sort of technology, and they don't think about the business side of it, the accounting side of it, making sure checks go out on time. I would venture to say that most of the teams, you know, the gaming teams in the United States still don't even have some of that stuff in place. I mean, they're just kind of working on a whim, month to month. Oh, we better get these checks out, you know, and it just... We definitely need to up the business side of things for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's really important because, you know, I've done a lot of stuff with TGS, and I'm sure there have been issues, but that has, when I came out with a TGS contract, literally within 1 to 2 days, the other networks had completely revamped their contracts. And it's one of those things where it definitely takes someone who wants to take a risk and who has the resources to do that to keep people in check. So I kind of did that on the YouTube end. You can talk to a lot of other channels. I think that they would agree. But on the eSports end, like someone like TotalBiscuit, he has a wildly popular YouTube presence. He does live events as well. And it takes someone like him to go, no, we're going to run a team correct, and we're not going to fuck people over. And if we do fuck people over, you're going to know about it because I'm a very popular person. So if my name is attached to bad behavior, it's going to get a lot of traction. And so in my experience, it really takes people who are willing to kind of stick their neck out, not try and cash out. Because, I mean, honestly, TotalBiscuit is not making a dime on having, you know, 5-6 people on an esports team. Like, he's not going to be making money on that. But what he is doing is the long-term prospects of running a team correctly, getting them a good house, making sure salaries are paid directly out of pocket, and making sure everything's good. And then all of a sudden, when you're a pro gamer, that gives you the power to be like, well, why aren't you doing this and this and this when Team Axiom or whatever teams are very well ran out there, when they're able to do that. And it definitely raises the bar. So any time that a company, for any pro gamer or any online entertainer is basically blatantly lying to you, I highly encourage you standing up for yourself and, you know, being really aggressive on, if you know you're getting swindled in some way, you have to stand up for yourself, not only for you, but for the people who aren't going to do that.
Are you okay with what Destiny did then?
Which part?
Well,
which
you know, just
which
basically,
part?
Yeah. You know, do you feel that it was the right approach for Destiny to make it public, considering his personality and his ability to reach a lot more people in the community? Do you feel that it was fine to do what he, leave the contract 2 weeks early and put it out, put it out on Reddit? I know he's not. I'm putting you on the spot here.
No, I don't feel put on the spot at all. I think the way that Destiny did it, it's not necessarily how I would have done it per se. However, the way he did it is so much better than how other people have done it in the past, where I didn't read it word for word, but I definitely was reading the chat logs and reading the responses and his responses in the Reddit thread and all that. And what he did is it's a very objective point of view. It's very factual. It's very to the point why you're upset with someone. Whereas sometimes when this kind of drama happens, it'll be very emotional fueled, where people will just they'll bring out stuff that doesn't matter. They'll bring out personal experiences that are really just to try and degrade people, like TMZ style. It doesn't really serve any purpose. So in my personal experience, what I've done is, when companies out there try to take advantage of me, the way I stick it to them is I go off and build something that's better. Now, the thing is, though, is that not everyone can do that. Like, that was a situation for me. So I think the way that Destiny did it is about as good as you can get if you're going to go public with something. I tend to keep things private. I'm not a big drama guy, but I know the way that Steven did it, I approve. That's why I left a comment in the first place, is because at least he is trying to be semi-professional about it and say why he's upset and just let people know.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, again, Steven, like, I appreciate you coming out with that, because there are a lot of people with the same story, a pretty similar story, that just either haven't been heard or just didn't bother doing it. And it kind of leads me to my next question, which I want to ask you, Steven. You finally left Owned, which is great. 2 weeks before the contract, that's cool. But my question to you is that you're not a dumb guy, right? And I mean,
thanks.
Why didn't you? No. And like, I mean, come on. I mean, why didn't you leave it earlier? Like, I mean, was it inertia? Was it the contract was just so good that you just wanted to believe that they were going to pay you this money?
Okay.
Or I just don't get it.
Like 15 million things brought up that I wish I could say something about. But I understand we're on a time limit, so I'm going to ignore everything that was said earlier. And it's really hard for me to do that. Okay, so the way that it works is the solution that I did when it came to going the route that I did and making everything public, that's like an absolute last resort thing. The only reason that I went public with everything is because I never plan on ever getting paid any of the money that they owe me. I seriously doubt they did. Because when you go public like that, the vitriol that is going to be between you and the company that owes you money is going to be so extreme that they're going to do everything they can not to pay you. So in terms of me getting paid, that was like a really... there's no way after making that kind of a post that anybody from Owned is going to voluntarily give me any money. The only reason that I did it is because personally I think the company's probably insolvent. They're probably going to go down soon anyway. They owe so many people money that I just can't see that company being in business for too much longer. But as I was like 6 months through the contract, the way that they what do you call it when you stagger? The way that the payments were staggered, it wasn't as bad. So like when I say that the last paycheck I got was dated for July, well, the first paycheck was like a month and a half late, and then the next paycheck came in like a month and 3 quarters, and the next one came in like 2.5 months. So there was always like a paycheck just wasn't coming every month, and it was just like a week later every time, So by the time like November rolled around, like I had just gotten a paycheck, but it was for July, like by the time we were in September, November, December. So like I didn't leave immediately, and I didn't try to switch immediately. One, because there's a built-in clause to the contract, although I could have written out of it. But mainly because I wanted to see the money that I'd already earned, and I figured that if I leave, it would probably hurt my chances too much to ever see that kind of money, and then to try to escape the contract and all that, like I'd have to write stuff up anyway too. So, but the only reason I left was because it became like absolutely dire towards the end, and they had continuously made it clear that they weren't going to make any attempt whatsoever to negotiate with me or to give me any of the money that I'm owed. So,
okay, I mean, thanks for explaining that. One thing I wanted to hopefully accomplish with this episode is trying to figure out at least some solution for you guys, for you guys to be maybe protected from situations like this. One thing that, we had Too Good on here recently, right? And we've had, Tumba on here talking about agencies and that sort of thing. And one of the things that James brought up when he was on here is that, one of the things that they'll do is they'll protect the players or the personalities they represent. If they don't get paid, hey, then you're, basically there was a Too Good agency will bring their legal team on to handle that. I mean, is that a good solution for this? Or, you know, obviously we've been talking about the individuals, you know, trying to educate themselves and become more you know, more in depth with just how to handle these situations. But, you know, for me, I just don't feel like everybody's going to do it. So I'm trying to get more of an overlying solution for this, or maybe just trying to figure out an overlying solution. What do you guys think?
I think that so here's the big problem. Okay, so economics, whatever you've got elastic and inelastic demands, right? The difference is if the price, like let's say in an economy, the price of food goes up, people might buy cheaper food. You know, like the demand for Pepsi is an elastic demand, because if the price on it goes up too much, you either buy a different soft drink or you don't buy it at all. Mm-hmm. Compared to, say, a product like insulin, that's an inelastic demand. No matter how much the price for insulin goes up, if you're a diabetic, you have to buy insulin, you know? There's no negotiating on it. The problem is that I think that things like litigation and legal fees are relatively inelastic, and that you're not going to find somebody that really knows how to go into court and pursue contract issues for a really, really, really cheap. It's just why would anybody dedicate their time to that when they could just go into the real legal world and make so much money? You know, I think the biggest problem is just the dollar amounts that you deal with in the contracts in this industry are so low. Like, you literally have people signing contracts that are worth $1,500, and like the average cost just to get in the door and talk to a lawyer can be $150, $200, $400 an hour. So like, yeah. I guess making like an agency like the Too Good agency might be nice. But if they're going to have like their whole legal team like off on hand, like how much money is that going to cost them? They're going to have to build that out to all the players. Do you think that somebody that gets $200 or $300 a month is going to pay $50 a month to subscribe to the Too Good agency to be defended? You know, like,
Stephen, it may be used more as a deterrent. And a lot of what Husky said too is that when he looked at contracts, he looked at it. So this is what Too Good agency could do, is they'll look at the contract and say, this is bullshit. You know, this and this and this don't make sense. So they're more of an advocate and a deterrent for these things happening. And maybe by doing so, maybe by these agencies coming to fruition and happening, they can at least be an advocate for change. So you're right. Maybe it's probably not the smartest idea to say, well, we're going to have a full legal team, because you're right. Somebody has to pay for that, and it would end up coming out of the players' pockets most likely. But the very fact that they have those people there and they have the ability to objectively look at a contract and say, this is bullshit, and do their research and go around and work with other opportunities, it may get more of these companies thinking, you know, we can't fuck around with these kids anymore, because that's the way they look at us.
Like, let's say that a team comes about. Let's say that a team comes about. I want to found a team, okay? And I'm going to make it like a game. 90% of the stuff in esports is, to be completely honest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on the Grandmaster ladder, and I'm going to find like 10 kids that I think are really good, and I'm going to sign them to like $150 a month contracts. Do you think that if I were to find random kids on the ladder who are Masters or Grandmasters player and offer them $150 a month, and then they go to like check the contract and like, but you guys weren't, you know, the Too Good agency said that you guys didn't have the best contracts. Do you really think that they would turn that down to get paid money to play video games? Like, probably it's really easy sometimes for us on top to say like, well, obviously I would turn that down, like, screw you, like I make tons of money streaming and, you know, from YouTube and whatnot. But like, to a kid that is literally like 18 years old playing video games, that there is nothing nothing is cooler than the thought of getting paid like $100 a month. Like, I would brag so much to my friends, yeah, I get paid $100 a month, you know, to get paid to play video games. I don't think that there's not enough pressure on the organizations, and there's not enough competition to actually drive a change like that just for an agency popping up. If I could throw in like one like really super relevant real world example, you have super idealistic Google opened Google Fiber in Kansas City, and the idea is, well, Google Fiber is opening now. All these ISPs are going to see how bad their internet service is, and they're all going to innovate, and they're all going to invest in infrastructure and all that. Well, that's not really going to happen at all, because it's not like nobody out there knows that better infrastructure and fiber exists. Everybody knows that. It's just that everybody has their own little geographic monopoly set up on that. Like, do you think Comcast in Washington is going to start offering better prices to the customers when Google only has fiber in Kansas City? No, they're not going to change until Google is literally breathing down their necks in Washington, literally about to open shop. Are they going to start to change the way they do business? And it's the same way that contracts work in esports. As long as there's literally like a plethora, a cornucopia of kids online who would love to get paid for playing video games, as long as that market exists,
we're still talking about really low dollar amounts, there's always going to be the opportunity for companies to come in and offer really low figures and screw people, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, you're talking as if there shouldn't be any difference between you guys at the top and these people that are just trying to get in and will accept anything. I mean, that sort of thing happens in every industry, man. I mean, the music industry, people are dying to sign a contract for a record label, and they always get screwed. I think it's like everybody knows, like, artists get screwed on their first record when they're recording it, and I mean that's going to be the normal thing for a guy just for folks just trying to get into the game, you know what I mean, and start making money. But the real issue is that even you guys at the top are getting screwed. I mean that's crazy.
I will say, as far as if yeah, I mean I approach this always super long-term goal. That's how my outlook on everything has always been. So I used to be a small guy. And I used to be in a situation where it's like, I can make $800 a month doing 60 hours of work a week in StarCraft. And to me, that was like, whoa, that's awesome. It's going to be, I can almost afford rent and I won't eat. Like, that's great. But the thing is I would say to people in that situation, since I've been there before when I had like 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, is that, I mean, at the end of the day, there is going to be kids, as Steven's saying, who are going to sign any contract just to be like, hey, bro, check out my fatty contract. I would recommend don't do that. Basically, what I found, at least in new media, I don't know anything about old media, is that you have to have a long-term plan and find a way to make yourself valuable. So what that means is you have to treat yourself like you are going to be a rock star, you're going to be successful and all that. And, for some people, you can't really do that because of whatever your situation is. But I think the most important thing is that you can't get excited about the first thing that comes your way because, sorry, if one thing is coming your way, there's probably going to be a lot more stuff just around the corner. So I think like a good example is Scarlett. Like, she has a lot of talent. She's really good at the game. And I imagine that the first offers that she was getting were probably laughably atrocious. And I think that the majority of people would have signed right away, been like, hell yeah, I do one good tournament. All these teams want me. I'm living the life. Not realizing that what you're actually getting is a pile of shit, and if you just wait and are patient and find out how to make yourself valuable, in Scarlett's case, her value is in her talent, but I am an indication you do not have to be talented to get a following. Like, that's the truth. And so, but like, in all honesty, I think that, there's ways for people to make themselves valuable, and you can look at someone like White Raw, who is not going to be winning a GSL anytime soon, but people love him. Or you can look at people who focus more on the talent, like Flash, where Flash doesn't have to make funny build videos online. His talent speaks for himself. So I would say look at the long-term goal, because one or 2 years doesn't seem like a lot, but in online stuff, the landscape. So just you have to be patient, and that's how I, at least myself, dodged the downfalls and the pitfalls of these horrible companies. Like, some of the companies that were asking me to join them don't even exist anymore, and I still would have been under contract with this ridiculously horrible company. So I would say you have to find out how to make yourself valuable. You don't have to be the most talented person in the world. Obviously, it helps, but there's so many ways to go about building up yourself other than signing a $300 a month contract, because that sounds great, but that literally doesn't do anything for you. So that's been my experience, and I know every person's situation is different, so I can't speak for everyone. But definitely myself, that's what I did, is I stuck to my guns for like 6 months, and it went from minimum wage, below minimum wage, unable to live in an Oregon house, to I'm living in LA and able to pay rent and all that. And I can tell you, it's like 10 times as much to live in LA. So
it's living in a mansion in LA.
Oh, I wish. God, houses here are so ridiculous. I would just like to say that. So, but yeah, that's my experiences. Sometimes there'll be signing bonuses and stuff that is like makes your eyes go wide. But if you don't step back and wait a couple of months, you're most likely going to get screwed over.
Yeah, and one of the things also I wanted to talk about is kind of the repercussions, of these companies doing that sort of thing and not paying you guys. And, it gets a little bit personal, it's a little bit personal question, so if you guys don't want to answer, it's perfectly fine. But, with Steven and Dima in particular, I kind of wanted to get a sense of, what does not getting paid for 6 months mean for you guys in real life? I mean, how tight are you because of it? Financially.
For me personally, I'm part of this wonderful network that
Husky, you should advertise it more because I don't even know how many people know like your involvement with things like the Game Station. I'm on YouTube and I get paid through that, so that's always nice. And I also have things I do on the side. Like I've got my contract with Phoenix. I've got anytime I get donations or I do lessons or anything like that. Every bit a little bit helps. I was making a lot of money doing this, so I had quite a bit saved too. So I was able to kind of live off of fumes for I guess 6 months, but. It only got really bad towards the end when I was stuck in Poland and running out of money and never going to get paid by Own, and I had to switch to Twitch as fast as possible to try to get another paycheck.
Dima, how about you? I mean, you just got married. You just started a family, right? And I mean, I don't know what it's like to live in Ukraine, but
it's not USA for sure. Like we have everything like really cheaper compared to any other countries in Europe and USA, of course. But still, like I trying to save money for my own place. Like I still rent a flat. Yeah, it's good flat, but still it's renting. It's not my own. It sucks when you lose money when you exactly like was worked for them like a lot of hours. It just sucks a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, being cheated. I mean, one story I guess I saw recently just is VVV Rough. He's not a big player, but I saw his kind of post in the TL thread that I forgot who posted, but it was a great thread, and a lot of people were just adding like their stories on the original post. And his story was basically he was banking on being able to make some money during this time, kind of between jobs and trying to figure out what to do. And again, he wasn't paid either during those months, and he's just basically forced to like move across the country now. And that sort of thing. I mean, I think all of us here and probably a lot of people watching are like, one of the things that we want most about just society in general is for gaming to be viable, for somebody that to play games and make a living, whether it's being a professional gamer or just being an entertainer, via streaming or YouTube or whatever. And what really pisses me off about this whole thing is that that really really hurts that cause, that kind of dream that we all have. And I think it'd be great to come up with solutions. That if
Chris, there were very few people, and I was blessed enough. I say blessed, and I mean it. I was blessed enough to have been paid to work in esports as many as 6-7 years ago, and there were very very few of us. Probably you could on two hands you could count the number of people that were paid in the sort of position that I was. And today there is a lot of money flowing through esports. And like Husky said, and Steven said, when someone sees an opportunity at $150 a month, they're going to jump on it, and that kind of is that's kind of a problem. That's a bad thing, because then companies think they can continue to get away with it. So we not only have to change the culture of the way that businesses view this industry, but we have to change the culture which the industry views itself. If we want to be considered a legitimate business and be taken serious by these businesses, we have to start acting that way as well. And I know some of us, and some of us in this chat right now, have had our problems with doing those things, but hopefully we can get away from that, those mistakes.
Yeah, I would say that the biggest change, and this is my experience already, is if you find yourself in on YouTube, we call it a talent position, where you're the entertainer in any way. So, like, I'm talent on YouTube. If you find yourself in a talent position, I would consider players as that as well. I mean, you basically have to decide, do I absolutely have to sign something and get paid whatever minuscule amount it is and deal with it for a year? Am I in a situation where I have to do that, or am I in a situation where I can actually defend myself a little bit? And I think people underestimate their value, because even when I was rejecting contracts for so long, I was always worried, like, oh God, if I reject this, I'm never going to hear from anyone again ever, and it's, oh no, everyone's never, whatever, I'm never going to go anywhere. And in my experience, if you are focused more on making something that's entertaining, making yourself a personality, and doing something that people want to watch, that is when the whole train is going to come on through. It's not whether you're signed for the first 6 months that you've been playing a video game. And also, I mean, it's something that I personally get upset when I see on Reddit, and it'll be a post like, "Oh my God, how much are Artosis and Tasteless being paid?" Or how much is this player being paid on this contract? That's ridiculous. No, those people should be making $10 million, just like any other sport. Because if you're not willing to have your talent, have your players, have your casters, have all the people that the fans are there to see, if it's not worth their time, they're just going to go do something else. That is complete common sense. So if you want to build up something like esports, you can't be stuck on, well, this player is making $100 more than this player. Like that is one thing about esports that to me is so unprofessional, where we're bickering back and forth about minor dollar amounts instead of trying to get everyone tons more money. And I don't know if it has to do with today's society or if it's always been like that, but it's definitely very counterproductive. So I would just say stop complaining. If a player is making tons of money, you should be happy about that because that's a good sign. And if you do find yourself as a player, focus more on honing your craft, whether it's being talented or being entertaining, and just have a little bit of patience, and it helps the scene as a whole, because that's what I did with TGS. And immediately upon launching TGS, contracts across the board, at least on YouTube, got revamped because they had to, otherwise they were going to lose everyone. So that's my experience in forcing change. TotalBiscuit's doing it a little bit differently. His is a much bigger investment right out the gate, but I think that those are the kind of situations that affect change the quickest, because the companies aren't going to do it. They're going to milk you till you die and then move on to the next thing. So you have to really find a way to combat that.
Also, another thing I wanted to point out too is that this situation, like the outpour of players and personalities coming out with their own stories, it was kind of shocking to me, honestly. Like, I knew about yours, Dima, right? Because I think there was a Reddit post at some point, and obviously I follow you on Twitter, so I definitely knew your story. But there are a lot of other stories I didn't know about, and I guess it kind of begs the question of, like, why didn't this come out sooner? Honestly, like, why does it take Steven? Obviously Steven has a big platform. Whether you love him or not, he's a very polarizing figure in just esports. When he comes out with something, that's why I'm so glad you came out with this, Steven, because it's something that needed to be discussed. I guess my question to you guys is, like, why didn't it come out before? Like, I mean, are these people have they just accepted the fact that they're just going to get screwed every once in a while? I mean, is that just really the common accepted belief, and we just move on? I mean,
sorry if I'm talking a lot. I just am actually going through this a lot right now with people from different networks who are literally getting dropped by their network. So basically, I think it's definitely a learning curve, especially, John especially, he's been around a long time. Where it's gone from, less than a decade ago to where it's at now is pretty shocking at how quick things have changed. And honestly, especially with players, I feel the worst for players because players, number one, don't have the time, and number two, honestly aren't concerned in a lot of ways with the business side of things because they just want to play their game and kick ass and go to competitions and do that. So I think a lot of the reason that they haven't come out yet is because, number one, there's no one representing those players, which is actually kind of my role at TGS, is I represent the talent. So if any talent in our network has trouble, they come to me because I make my living off of what they do. So I represent people. So if they didn't get paid for a month, I will storm into the accounting office and be like, what the fuck? Unfortunately, players don't really have that kind of representation. So I think if they know they're getting screwed over, they're a little bit scared. They feel powerless, like there's no one really on their side. Maybe they can talk to their teammates and try and start something, but it's just not enough. So either they're afraid, or they may honestly not even realize that they've signed the worst contract known to man. Like, I don't even want to know what some of the player contracts are because it'll probably make me furious. And I think as time goes on, it'll slowly start to catch up where players are saying, well, if I'm participating on a team and we're getting this many views and I'm being paid below minimum wage, that doesn't make sense. So I've seen more and more players and more talent start to wake up, but I think it's going to be, you're going to be seeing a lot of this, unfortunately. But the players, their mindset isn't around their contract. Their mindset is around being the best player they can be. And so I think that's why they lag behind a little bit. Because people take advantage of them. They'll take advantage of someone who just wants to play games, and there really has to be someone who represents them to be like, no, what the fuck are you doing? This is ridiculous.
So that should be the teams, right? I mean, unfortunately, Dima, in your situation, you know, like MTW was sponsored by Owned, and so they were getting screwed too. But what are your thoughts on that?
That was a problem for me. It was a problem for me. Like even Owned paid like maybe not all money that Owned to MTW, but it was that problem that MTW didn't pay to me directly. Like this the same, because they have some other problems that I don't know, and right now like make no sense to stay with them. Even like I still always talking with them in good relationships. They said like, yeah, we have problems, but right now we can do nothing. So
let me comment on that, and I'm just going to be brutally honest. While at CSN, you know, the Cybersports Network, you know, we ran events for players. And this has been an issue that I dealt with in the past at GGL, and I vowed that it would never happen again. You know, some of the people that worked with me who still work with me today went through this, and we said we're never going to allow this again, where a company can say to a player, we can't pay you because we haven't been paid by our sponsor. This is nothing new. It's happened since the CPL days. This has always happened, right? So at CSN, I said, I'm never going to let that happen. And I'm going to tell a little story here, and it's going to involve Twitch, actually. We didn't get paid when we thought we were going to get paid from Twitch to pay out players. And that is, I have to admit that we told the players that very same thing. And I said it myself. I said, listen, we're doing everything that we can to get you paid. We're still waiting from Twitch. Now, it was a mistake. It was an honest mistake, and Twitch ended up paying it without a problem once we got a hold of them. Again, just to show that it's really about communication. And Twitch has always been very available. Always been very available. So once we got it figured out, it worked. But I've used that before, and I vowed that I would never use that again. It wasn't a very long wait for the player to get paid, and that's a whole other thing. That's a whole other conversation for another day, is that players who win prizing think they need to be paid the same day. That doesn't happen in the real world. It probably shouldn't happen in esports either, because we're so far behind in money. But for the most part, you know, not that I can pat myself on the back because I didn't make the payments, but that was something that we strive for, and we tried to pay every player, no matter if we had gotten the money from the sponsor or not. But that is a problem that happens. It's like it's a snowball effect. You know, the sponsor doesn't pay you, so we, you know, CSN was like, well, we're going to make sure we get the money up front. But then that is not the way business always works either. So you know, and I don't know what the answer is, but I think in the team situation for Dimaga, it's unfortunate that they used not getting paid as a reason for them not to pay you. That's really unfair, and that's not business, because it doesn't matter what happens on their end. Your contract says you're supposed to get paid, and that's pretty unfortunate that they did that.
Yeah, I would say I mean, obviously I've never ran huge live events. I don't know much about how that goes, but in everything that I'm involved with, whether it's buying a car or whether it was running, you know, a tournament like the HDH or show matches with TotalBiscuit and all that, is me personally, if I'm hosting an event, I don't run it with money that doesn't exist. And so I think that, you know, the players, if they show up, like MLG is really good at this, at least from a caster standpoint, where as soon as the show wraps, they gather everyone, they hand them a check, you're done, clean cut, and all that. I mean, I'm not familiar with how the events you've been involved with were ran, or how hard it was to get money, but honestly, if the way I do business anyways is you can't spend money or earn money that doesn't exist. If a sponsor says we'll pay you, you don't host the event until you have the money. Like, to me, that's a no-brainer, because it's got to run.
Yeah, you can't be waiting for the check for the last event to pay this event.
And that's how it was done in the past. You were always, and companies still do it today. I mean, we've heard the stories about ESL having not paid for 2 years, CPL, you know, lagging behind a year in payments. The reason that was the case was that they were always waiting for their next event. They would literally set up a new event to pay for the last one. They're like, well, let's go get sponsors for this next event. We got to raise this amount of money so that we can pay for our last event. It's a very bad process, but I have to be fair in that sometimes in just the business, and I agree with you, Husky, it's the way it should be is that you don't do anything until you get paid. But unfortunately, sometimes you work out agreements, like we're going to pay you out at 30 days, you know, and you expect that those contracts will hold up as well. So sometimes that's just the way business is done, but I agree, you know, hopefully we can change that where you are paid instantly at an event. I have worked events where we literally handed cash to the gamers after they ended up winning, or a check. But that's a very rare case, and I've worked a lot of events.
All right, so why don't we? I mean, we're not going to take callers today, so why don't we take questions from the chat? If you guys can start, if you got any questions for us, you know, start typing in the stream chat, and we'll you know, answer them or read them out and answer them, all that good stuff.
I have a question real quick. I have a question. Sure. Destiny, what is the solution here? What do you feel that what's an idea that you have that would alleviate some of these problems? I mean, it's obviously you're upset and it's a shitty thing that happened. Trust me, I've been there. But what do you feel can be done? I mean, what can we do moving forward?
I don't know, man. It's really complicated. I have a lot of problems with everything that goes on in this industry. That's why I just kind of stick to the streaming side of things. I don't know. It's really complicated. You could talk for hours.
But that was, I mean, the streaming side of things is where it ended up getting you. You know, like you didn't avoid it just by doing the streaming side of things, right? So.
Oh yeah, no, I know that's true. That's true. But in a way, I kind of did. One of the biggest problems with the entire esports industry is that it's set up on Steam, or you could call it, I guess, the bubble or whatever. Like I guess is how economists refer to it, where people invest all of this money in the hopes of chasing a return that should come, but if that return doesn't come, you see this huge burst, and it's like really disgusting for everybody involved. And we've seen it happen time and time again. And I understand that, like, esports, we love esports and it's really explosive, but I really wish that people would stop doing that.
Wait. You wish people would stop putting money into esports? I mean, is that what you're saying?
Start to look at more, I wish people would start to look at more realistic returns, because I think it would make everybody in the industry a lot better off. I would rather that everybody be getting paid half the money that they are now, but have a sustainable, forward-moving system than esports being an enormous. Right now, esports is a huge fucking money grab. That's what esports is. And I got caught up in it too with signing the own contract. It's a big money grab where nobody really knows how big it's going to get, but people are pumping a lot in now in the hopes of seeing returns in the future. So it's just like a money grab. I'm probably about to make you've got 5,000 viewers. I'm probably about to make 5,000 enemies right now. Okay, but I absolutely love TotalBiscuit to death. Okay, he's my favorite guy in the world. He built himself, like similar to Husky. You know, like he built his own brand and everything, like on his own. He didn't start out with a huge company or anything. But I get a little bit disappointed when I see things like Husky finding like the Axiom team, founding the Axiom team, like. Husky even said it earlier, you know, TotalBiscuit's not making money on that team. So what do you have? You've got, you know, more players that are getting paid money that they're not necessarily, you know, showing a good ROI on. So then it kind of builds up the expectations of everybody else in the industry again to hope, like, hey, like these guys get paid $1,000. Like, I'm going to fight for that kind of a contract. Well, kind of, but the $1,000 or whatever they get paid a month is kind of an imaginary figure. It's more like a charity. It's more like an investment into something that may or may not ever turn out. But that investment into something that may or may not turn out, instead of being seen as that, it becomes the expectation, you know? That's one of the biggest problems that I have. But that like underlying fundamental problem drives so much in this industry, and it hurts to see everybody riding on it. In my opinion, that's why I like to feel like the streaming and the CPM side of things. Because when you talk about things like YouTube and streaming, like that ROI, like that's there. Like I get paid a check every month, and if I drop dead, or like I stop everything right now, like my net worth is done at the end of the year. Like I have the money that I spent on my computer, my internet, and I've got the money that I've made streaming, and I'm done. I don't have like $100 million or like $10 million in venture capital that I've raised and all these investors that I have to pay back, and like, holy shit, I'm in debt up to my eyeballs now because I wasn't making the money that I raised all this capital to, not to knock anybody that's done it or anything, but that's a really big problem. That underlying philosophical thing, and that I'm going to invest a whole bunch now to try to get some in the future, it really, really, really bothers me. But that's just it. I don't know.
Well, I mean, and Chris, you and I have talked about this before. For me, I believe there just has to be a change in the way that money is being transferred from one element to the next. I mean, I'm all for players paying more of their share of making sure that things go right within a team. I mean, that's a broad way of saying it, but I think there are things that we can do differently that will help further growth, as opposed to, like Destiny said, it becomes more of just a money grab by certain individuals or certain organizations.
Well, you said a lot there, Steven. So I actually want to comment on a few of those things that you said. Totally agree. I'm Mr. All about low overhead, low maintenance, get the most of what you can. So I completely agree with that. But I totally understand just also the model of investing a lot of money and trying to go big with it. I mean, a lot of people do that. I mean, that's why there's all these venture capitalists that put millions, $100 million into these kind of startup companies and that sort of thing. And when they hit it big, we're talking like billions of dollars in return. Okay, so that works too. Okay, in terms of TotalBiscuit, I mean, I'm right there with you. Love what they're doing. Love what they do with their platform. Husky, same with you. I love what you do with your platform too. With Axiom, I feel like, there's no telling yet whether they can make money. I mean, they're a little bit different than all the other teams out there, right? They have they already have a very, very successful media company, and if anybody can make media work with a team, it's going to be them, right? So I feel like it's still out. The verdict is still out on if they're going to be making money. But not to mention, Jenna's talked about it's gratifying for her also, just in a different sort of way. And that I guess that kind of leads to
that's why a lot of us do this, Chris, because we have passion and we love doing it. So we oftentimes do it for dirt cheap.
I mean,
a little bit.
That's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that.
People have to get out of the mindset. They have to get out of the entitled. There are two mindsets that need to be gone. Okay. One is this entitlement mindset that everything has to be free, blah, 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 blah. And two is the passion for esports and everybody's a good person mindset. Like that, like it just doesn't exist in the real world. And as long as you expect your entire industry to be powered by that, like you have no idea how much it hurt me to hear the CEO of the largest team in StarCraft 2, e.g. to hear Alex Garfield literally crying because Slasher broke a story like on his team, like pretty much doing his job. And all I heard from Alex Garfield is, please, this is esports. Everybody loves esports. Please give me a charitable handout and don't take money away from me. But like everybody has that kind of an attitude going in. Like we just need more investment. We just need like more charity. We just need more money, more money. Instead of looking for like let's look at some actual growth. Like let's get some actual growth going on here. Like you said, with TotalBiscuit's team, marketing is very important. And the one thing that Axiom has going for it that probably only EG has going for it is they have the marketing side down. And that is so important. Holy crap, nobody markets teams in esports. That's like where all of your money comes from. Like, can you name, and I'm not going to bash on anybody, but I am going to bash on people. Can you name Dignitas sponsors right now?
Who?
No.
I mean, you were breaking up.
Sorry, can you name me like Dignitas sponsors? Can you you could name like every team, and you really don't kind of know, or at least me personally. Like I watch a fair bit, but like when it comes to a team like EG, and I'll compliment EG on this. EG has their marketing shit down. Everything that they do, they're constantly promoting their sponsors. Everybody knows Monster from EG. Everybody knows Steer Serials or Intel because they're saying it at the end of like every single thing. The whole marketing side, like people don't have that down at all, except for Axiom and EG. Sorry, I went off there. Go ahead.
I guess
I like real growth. I'm
all about real growth too.
Growth instead of the hypothetical stuff that we deal in, and then it bursts sometimes, and everybody's like, "What happened?"
But to be fair, Steven, you've benefited from that hyper inflated growth, correct?
A little bit, but the only like really bad decision that I probably made in pursuing that was going after the own cash incentive. And again, like I feel like I worked with the information I had available to me the best that I could. But other than that, like I try not to go after big, like I try not to get like big investments of things, like and try to promise on future deliveries that may or may not happen. Like, all of my growth is I have an audience, I get paid X amount of dollars from wherever I stream from, and then that's it. Like, I don't have anything after. Like I said, like, if I were to stop doing what I'm doing right now, like, I'm even Steven, like, I'm done, you know? Like, I don't owe a bunch of people a bunch of money. There's not, like, a whole bunch of outstanding contracts and stuff that I have to work with, you know? Like, everything that I do is relatively real and sustainable, at least at where I'm at right now. If the advertising companies all shut down, they decide they don't want to do it anymore, then I'm done at that. But at least I don't owe a bunch of people a bunch of money, you know? And I don't leave a whole bunch of people screwed as a result of what I'm doing.
I'm curious what your thoughts are on it, Husky, because, you know, you have scaled your business up, and you know, I don't think you've necessarily invested a good amount of money in trying to grow your business, you know, like a large chunk to try to grow your business at a faster rate. I mean, is that fair to say?
Yeah, no, I mean, like I've said before, everything I've personally always done is I build something with money that exists. I've never taken loans. I've never done anything like that. So when I started my YouTube channel, I mean, I didn't even borrow a nice headset. I didn't buy a new headset until I had actually made $150 or whatever to buy the Sennheiser, which took me like 6 months. Like, it definitely, that's how I do everything, is very sustainable, where this is my resources and this is what I can do. As far as talking about like Team Axiom and TotalBiscuit and all that, I honestly, I don't really know what Steven's point was on that. What I will say is that...
Can I give a really good example of something that everybody's familiar with right now? I hate to use these guys as an example, but I don't want to use examples I don't have a lot of personal experience.
Uh-oh.
We lost him.
Yeah, I think we were...
Let's go with the Ministry of Win, okay?
Yeah.
The Ministry of Win leases a house in a foreign country. Well, I'm sorry. They lease a house in a country, okay? They invest all of the money into the house, into the internet, into setting up employees and all of it there. So now they have this huge investment, okay? And with their current business plan, it's not sustainable, okay? So they've invested X dollar amount, okay? And their income is Y, and that leaves them with negative cash flow, okay? But the hope is, if we invest negatively, you know, if we have like negative cash flow in the first 3 months, maybe by the 4th month it'll start to turn around, and then we'll make our money back, and then the big money, the big bucks will be rolling in the future. Like that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about happens, that I really would like people to stay away from. Like,
well, I don't know too much about Ministry of Win, but did they have enough money to run the house correctly for a year?
Oh, I don't know. You'd have to get into their.
Because I mean, what I've heard is that
I would wonder is that they were given like investors. Like, investors are the people that back that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about that, and I don't want to dive into it, but if they weren't able to pay everyone in that house for a year, then they're using money again that doesn't exist, and that should never happen. Whereas TotalBiscuit, I mean, you watch his updates and tweets, and he's saying, all right, we literally have paid for a year of this house, and Korea does some weird thing where you have to pay a bunch of money up front. I don't understand, but anyways, they're saying we can pay these players no matter what. Like, he can just dump all of his money in there for at least a year, and again, to me, there's really no downside to that. It's not unsustainable because it's already sustained. Now, is he going to make money on that or whatever? I mean, we'll have to wait.
That's the fault of the investor for thinking that they're. I mean, not looking at it and going, how are these guys going to make any money? I mean, if I take my money away, how are they making me any money? So that's the problem from the investors.
The only problem that I have, and like I understand in terms of whether or not it's sustainable, it doesn't matter, is that what happens is you get this like you get this public appearance where there's like a big contraction, even if there's not. Like, let's say that TotalBiscuit ends up investing $150,000 to make everything, you know, to make everything square, and he squared away everything for a year. And at the end of the year, it turns out that he lost $70,000 on it. But you know, it was all paid for, but he still lost money on it. Then what happens is, and what fans are. Hey, this year, like, the average player salary is $2,000. Everybody's talking about it. Wow, that's really cool, blah, blah, blah. And then next year, it's like, wow, the average player salary fell to half, and holy crap, like, everything is so bad. And then you get into, like, these really weird mindsets where, like, well, what actually happened? Like, is StarCraft shrinking, blah, blah, blah? Well, no, StarCraft was never actually shrinking. There was just a whole bunch of, you know, investment / borderline charity that kind of carried it through to this point. But once people realized that they weren't going to make the money that they thought, we kind of have to back up down to reality. And what happened is reality, instead of just looking like reality looks like we're actually really far back from where we should be, when in reality we just kind of got pumped up to levels that were unsustainable in the first place. I don't know if does that kind of make sense? That's how I view it personally.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. Like, yeah. I mean, I think some things are silly, like having a $2 million one tournament. Like, I think stuff like that is silly because you could actually build a league out with that money.
Exactly.
So I think in some cases it makes sense. I think, like, the GSL kind of did it right, where they had all the money. They said, here's going to be X, Y, Z seasons, and it was all paid for. But, I mean, really, the thing I will say, I don't know too much about specifically what you're saying, Steven, on that, but I will say that you should definitely want someone like John, TotalBiscuit, to be running a team as opposed to some guy who wants to start a team. Because what John's going to do is when he's talking to sponsors, and sponsors are like, all right, we're going to pay you in 3 months, and then, if your team does well, we'll pay you. Like, he's not going to let any bullshit through. He's going to go, no, you're going to pay us right now, and if not, go the fuck away. And so when you get people who actually have the pull, it really keeps the sponsors in line. Because I can guarantee you, just in talking to sponsors now, that Team Axiom currently doesn't have any face sponsors, and starting with that platform is huge, because if a big company wants to join in, they're not going to be pulling any bullshit whatsoever. And I think that yes, maybe John is shoveling and raising players' rates a little bit, but at the same time he's keeping those sponsors in line. So if they want to have that package, they actually have to be a business and be professional and not try and undercut. Because I can tell you, in dealing with John, he puts me in my place all the time, and we're like really good friends. He gives no fucks. He's gonna do what is best for him as a business and him for his team there. So I definitely think that maybe raising players' salaries a little bit higher than they should be. Yeah, that can be bad, but I don't know. I think it's kind of important that the sponsors are the one benefiting from the partnership, and as someone who's getting sponsored, you have to remember that. Like, if you have made yourself valuable, which John definitely has, you don't let anyone strong-arm you in any way, and it keeps them in line, and I think it helps out all the other teams. I can guarantee you EG doesn't let those sponsors get away with anything stupid. So I definitely think that's more important than whatever downside there would be to John running a team. I don't really see that.
Yeah, I mean, Axiom's in a unique position. We've had them on and talked about it in the past, where they already have a sustainable, successful business that's basically funding this. So they're not desperate. They can just say, well, screw you. Like, if you're not gonna pay us something reasonable, then screw you, and we'll just wait for the next one, right? So that's why their business model or their situation is pretty unique and interesting for us to see. And I think overall it will benefit because it's more robust in a way than the typical team just coming on with either just hopes of sponsors or very grassroots-ish, right?
Well, I think a good example too is Team Liquid, where Team Liquid has been very smart about their team. Of course, I'm not on the team, so I can't speak for Sheth, who I see in chat and all that. But from what I've seen is their marketing's okay. They could definitely use some help there. But the people that they work with, like the Little App Factory, for example, I'm good friends with him as well. Like it's just a really solid relationship, and they have scaled the team with the popularity over time of the website. So I think that's how you have to do it. You have to see, what money do I actually have on hand, whether it's income or whether it's just this money I want to invest in, and what can I do with the resources I have. And anytime anyone tries to go above that, it's going to cause problems. I think that's how you do sustainable growth. Like the NASL, for example, the guy who runs that, he was successful from whatever he did in the past. He looked at how much money he had, and he's like, I can pay for 3 seasons right up front. And as far as I know, he actually paid all the players, and I got paid for the casting I did. He literally hand wrote a check like as I was starting my cast, basically. And so I think it's very important that companies, if they're going to do something, whether it's a live event, whether it's a team, whether it's whatever, a network on YouTube, you just got to go in with money that you actually have. That's how I do business anyways. Because if you rely on money that doesn't exist, sponsors are going to take advantage of you, the players are going to get screwed, and
it's just the integrity of business, in our industry. That's what we're really talking about. Dima, you've been quiet a little bit. I just want to ask you, like, when you're looking, right now you're teamless. You're looking for a new team. Does how much of this has affected the way you're going to be looking for a new team and the questions that you're going to ask?
I didn't know. I trying to find some team or just some maybe personal sponsors. Like I'm still thinking and still waiting for some good offers for that. So I will decide what is better for me, just to take some team offer or just going to this some kind of personal sponsorship like Dmytro or Grabby does. So it depends on offer, and of course I will choose what is better for me, and of course I will trying to take all this stuff and thinking about long-term relationship, not only like for 1 year or something like that.
I see. So with long-term relationships with these sponsors or with like the streaming companies and stuff like that?
Streaming company is like another stuff.
Yeah.
You're just streaming, right, for them. So overall, for team or for sponsors, like I want to probably personal sponsors more. Even if first year I will get less money for salary and other stuff, it can be more in the future if you will work pretty good and sell stuff. So this is like what I want, but we'll see how it will work out, and I'm not sure right now.
Okay. All right, so I said we were going to take questions like about 15, 20 minutes ago, but why don't we actually take some?
I have a few written down.
Okay, go for it, John.
I wrote down
John's our question guy.
Yeah, well, kind of. Now I got to find them.
Okay. You wrote them down.
Okay, so morning 22 or 32, and this was literally 45 minutes ago in the chat. He wants to know, and I don't think it's directed at anyone in specific, but how much longer do you think this sort of thing is going to happen before this activity starts to change? Are we going to see a change in the way that our mindsets, as Destiny put it, that our mindsets start to change and real change starts to take place?
I'll just say I think people not getting paid is a thing that will start to happen less and less. At least on YouTube, when I first started, people, again, the same exact thing. They were being told, number one, we can only pay you every 3 months, and then number two, like, oh, our payment has to be delayed a month, our payment has to be delayed 2 months. And the amount of that happening, since there has been a lot more competition, has definitely gone down. Now, I still hear cases about people on YouTube not getting paid. A lot of times it has to do with an accounting error or something like that, as opposed to a company trying to withhold those funds for whatever reason. And since I've seen, I mean, I have a very skeptical worldview as well, but since I've seen the improvement happen on YouTube, I think esports will get there probably a little bit slower, though, because YouTube, everything's in one confined space. You're all going through YouTube, whereas esports is a million different things all over the place. So I definitely think getting paid will not be as big of an issue. I think shady contracts and stuff will be around for a very, very, very long time, because those still exist today in in like the music industry, and I'm sure there's sports industry contracts that are terrible and stuff like that. So that is more up to the individual to watch out for. But I mean, I don't follow other sports, so I don't know if there's like any athletes that don't get paid, but I have a feeling that it doesn't happen nearly as much as it does in esports.
Well, they have associations representing the entire player, so the player association will be all over the league, man. If
those guys also
happens.
have very, very, very real worth. Like when those guys sign contracts for millions of dollars, it's because they're worth that much, you know? Like if somebody decides that they're not going to sign a player that would have been signed for $10 million, that guy's not broke on his ass because, people decided to stop investing. Like he'll just go to the next highest bidder.
Yeah, and that's why I think it'll go down over time, because at the end of the day, whether it's StarCraft or whether it's League or whatever, more and more people are playing games. I mean, eventually it might even be all the kids playing Minecraft now. There's a competitive Minecraft game, and it's just getting more and more popular. So it's not even necessarily just a StarCraft or a League issue. It's definitely an esports issue, and I think that it's a no-brainer that over time esports is going to be worth more if you include all games. Now, of course, I would love StarCraft to be the biggest game in the world, but if that's not the case, I think you're going to start seeing the like e-athletes increase their value over time, and I think they already have. Some of the league contracts and stuff, and then the prize winnings are already way more than what had happened 3 years ago, even with StarCraft. And then before that, I know esports had a good year a long time ago, but I think overall
a good year,
a long time ago,
a long time ago. But I think overall, like the value is going to go up just because there's more people playing games and all that. So
yeah, absolutely.
It'll people not getting paid will start to go away, but shitty contracts will be around no matter what industry you're in.
Yeah.
Actually, Ben just messaged me. He made a good point. It's more towards your comment, Stephen, about just why all these people it feeling like almost philanthropy and investing into esports in some way. He actually says that pro teams are basically loss leaders for. I mean, his exact quote is pro teams are loss leaders for wealthy people. Big write-offs at the end of the year equal net gain and overall wealth. And I mean, I have to agree with him to some extent. There
Wait
are
a second. Wait, who is Ben? Who is Ben?
Oh, Mr. Bitter. Sorry, Mr. Bitter Ben. Ben
I mean, it depends on what you mean by like a loss leader. Like in terms of, like what do you mean by loss leader? Like if it's something that you just like, that's kind of a deceptive term, I think, because like say for example, like you talk about something like, okay, so here's an example from a long time ago. I don't remember if I read this was actually true or not, but I know that a lot of people thought it and a lot of people were mad. But Walmart, everybody knows Walmart, right? The seventh Harry Potter book came out, and Walmart was selling it for like a ridiculously low price. And I think a lot of local bookstores were getting really upset. And I think the idea was that Walmart was selling it at either a loss or they weren't making any money on it at all. And the idea of a loss leader there is like people come into the store, they buy a whole bunch of shit, and even though they technically lost money in the book, they still made money overall. Something like IGN sponsoring IPL, even though they don't make any money on the tournament itself, it's okay because the whole IPL tournament, it works as a loss leader for IGN to make its brand look a lot better, so it gets like more marketability that way. Even if you're a loss leader doesn't just mean I'm going to dump a bunch of money into you and I'm going to lose it all, but it's okay because it's a loss leader. Like loss leaders are more like a subsidiary of a larger business, like what Husky talks about with TotalBiscuit. Axiom is kind of like almost right now. Axiom is like a loss leader for TotalBiscuit's brand, and that Axiom is a subsidiary of TotalBiscuit. He's got the money to pay for it. Axiom is subsidized by him, and hopefully the lawsuit will be profitable over time.
Yeah, but it's the same. I mean, he's saying the same thing that you're saying. I mean, like there's value.
But
it's money that would go away anyways. I mean,
but it's an important distinction because a loss leader. There's a plan for a loss leader. It's not just I'm gonna throw money. Like I just spent like $50,000 on a hooker and she didn't even show up at my house. That's a loss leader. Like no, like that. Like it doesn't work that way. Like there are reasons why. Like it's like why it's a loss leader. Like it's set up in a certain way to make money eventually.
Oh, I mean, I agree. There are better, loss leaders than others, but in the end, I mean, there is value that's retained. Whether it is like a prostitute that cleans your house or whatever, that's something that wouldn't even be there regardless. Like you're just going to lose that money anyways. You know what I mean? So it's
the only problem is when you find out you could have bought that prostitute for $1,000 instead of $50,000, and then all the prostitutes in the market are pissed off because now they're looking for $20,000 contracts and they realize that their value was inflated. I'm just kidding. All right, never mind. Okay.
Touche. All right, next question, John. Is there another one you have down there?
Yeah, this is actually a good one. This is for Dimaga and Destiny. It comes from Fatalistic, I think, in the chat, and that was a while ago. Has there been, since you put that out on Reddit, and there's been all this talk of Own, and I guarantee that they're paying attention right now and that they've heard about this. Has there been anything official? Has anyone contacted you, either one of you, from Owned since in the last 2 days?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, I can say it. Like today I was talking with Oleg, like CEO of Owned, and also Kelly Milkis. He just right before as this show started, she said like I watching it. I didn't know this stuff. You didn't get money. I talked with Oleg. We had a conversation, and also with my manager, because like I'm just a worker. Because I cannot like do nothing because I don't have contract with Oleg. I have contract with MTW, as I said before. And overall, like Oleg said, like we pay to MTW, go to your team and ask and talk with them. It's not our problem because you're talking bullshit. And I said, I go to my manager, and he said like, no, we still didn't get money. And I like blindly, I didn't know who says true.
Yeah, who's lying to you?
And who is lying to me? And it's like at the end, like I'm screwed up, and it's like it's still shitty for me, guys. I don't care who gets screwed up. You own it or MTW. At the end, like I screwed. But yeah, I was talking with CEO like today.
Okay.
Steven?
No, nothing. I don't expect to hear anything.
I think that would be. Yeah, that just. Oh god, that sucks.
One thing I would say in my experience is that if you're going to sign a contract with someone, and I don't know if you guys did this or not, but definitely meet the people in person. When I was looking at contracts, I flew to like 5 or 6 different gaming companies, and I met the CEOs of all those companies, and if they didn't want to take the time to meet me, I'm just like, well, later, you're not worth my time either.
Yeah,
so that for me has helped so much because I've met a lot of gaming companies, and you can tell really quickly if you're going there to try and figure this out, if they're gonna be like just all about the money or if they're actually passionate. I feel like there's 3 different categories. There's the people who are all about the money, which you're going to run into in every industry. They don't care anything about what they're working on. They just want to make money. There's people who are passionate about trying to build something that works, and then there's people who I feel are kind of like me, where it's you do that for a living anyway, and you want to try and grow that and spread it around. So like me, for example, I was already doing YouTube, and I wanted to find a way to make it even better for everyone else. And the first kind is very rare because most people aren't going to be like, well, I'm a professional kayaker, so I'm going to make it a business about kayak. Like, not many people do that, but those are the ones you really want to cling on to. Like, if there was an ex-pro player making a sports team, like an eSports team, there I can guarantee you that they're not going to be money grubbing just trying to do it for money because they would have already gone on to something else. So I would definitely keep an eye out for those. And like when I started TGS, those were the kinds of people who were working there. Like Maker was founded by 3 YouTubers who were full-time making a living doing it already. So that's what I clinged on to. And of course there's been issues, here and there. But compared to the other companies I met who I didn't get that vibe from, those companies are struggling a lot more right now. So I would say that's definitely a good tip for any player or anyone. Just say, hey, fly me out. I want to meet you. Let's see if this works. And if they're like, well, we don't want to pay $800 for your ticket, then it's like you don't want to work with that kind of company because they aren't professional. They aren't legit. They aren't doing it how business is done. So
right, and
that's good advice, Mike.
It is great advice, but let's remember, I mean, Husky, you have a great personality. You definitely have business sense. I'm going to just go out on a limb and say that about 85% of the rest of the people in gaming are not even at most of our age groups, and they don't have the same sort of understanding. Although it's very, very good advice, it's one of those things where it's easier said than done because a lot of these guys, they won't even know how to have that conversation.
Well, I mean,
we need people advising these people. We need people advising these people.
Yeah, and that's exactly kind of the point of like the show. I mean, yeah, there's going to be people who the only way they're going to learn is by signing a bad contract and learning from it. But either way, I mean, the end goal, like I wish I had people telling me their experiences when I first started. And, that just didn't exist as much back then. And even more so when you started. Like there probably wasn't a whole lot of people advising you, John, on exactly how to do it. So I think one of the best ways to raise it up is, yes, there are going to be people who will never hear this, who are going to sign a bad contract. But if there are people in those situations, the whole point of me mentioning it is, in my experience, meeting people, shaking their hand, going out to dinner with them, you are going to cut right through bullshit so fast. It's kind of like online dating, where people can promise you the world, but if you show up and it's a fat neckbeard who's 45, you know that right away. And obviously everyone's personality is different. They might not pick up on certain things, but I think it definitely doesn't hurt to be, I don't know, to just stick up for yourself. I think people get scared.
I agree. I just wanted to kind of, as a devil's advocate, point it out that there are a lot of people in this industry or in this community in the sense that, 17, 18 years old, and they really don't have they don't have a clue yet on how to approach these sorts of things.
Yeah,
even if you're 25 and you're listening now, it doesn't mean you've dealt with this sort of a situation. I mean, when's the last time you walked in with a suit and tie on into a business and had a serious business conversation or just made a pitch? Are you all ready to have your elevator pitch? I mean, some of you wouldn't even know what that would mean. So, I mean, these are things that, for those like Husky who are going through it or dealing with contracts, is they can offer this information, they can offer this advice to people.
Yeah, I want to say on that just before I forget.
Sure.
The reason, like when I was first looking at contracts, I'll admit I thought under minimum wage for playing games was great, and no one was going to convince me differently. And the reason that I at least got started off right was because my dad was reading through the contracts, and he would do research on those companies, and he would literally be like, look, this company is made with investment dollars from this company. Do you think this company cares about gaming? And the answer was no for almost all the companies out there. So having someone, and hopefully I can kind of fill that role just a little bit, I told my dad, I was like, no, nothing's better going to come along, Dad. And he's like, son, I'm not going to let you sign this. Even though I was over 18, I could have signed it anyways. But that information is so invaluable, and that's why I'm at where I am at now. Whereas if I would have signed a bad contract, I would have been way down here, which is what I think. Like Dimaga, for example, like he should be, I think, a lot more well-known because I think the team he's with should market him. I think that his live stream should be bigger and stuff like that, where some teams can offer that and some can't. And it's it's really, really tough because it's so tempting to just jump right on those, and everyone's situation is different. So I would say meet them in person if you can. That's the advice my dad gave me, and I followed it, and it worked.
It worked out.
Yeah.
So that goes to the next question. This is from Brew22, and it goes right in line. This is for Destiny specifically, but it goes right in line what we were talking about. Destiny, in your opinion, what would you? So for an aspiring gamer, whether it be a pro gamer or a personality, would you recommend, personally, coming from you, would you recommend they sign a contract even if they kind of sensed that it was shitty, for that opportunity to kind of get their foot in the door? Or would you say, nope, don't do it, step away and find something else and do it on your own? What would your suggestion be to somebody that was aspiring to kind of do what you're doing? And like you said earlier, if they're offered $150, I mean, are you saying that maybe they should take it in some cases, or what?
This is going to be like the really unpopular answer, but I have a really, really realistic way of viewing things, and it really depends on what your goal is to get out of everything. If you're somebody who, and there are no wrong answers, okay? So like once we're out of school, there are no wrong answers to what you're going to do. If you're somebody and you just want to sit and play games all day, maybe go to MLGs and compete, and somebody comes along offering you a contract for $150 a month to play, and you're like, I'm probably not going to get that much anywhere else. Like, you could look around a little bit. There's probably not anything too wrong with signing it. Like, the worst that can happen is they agree and you don't get paid, but then that's it. The really important stuff when it comes to signing contracts is if you want to build yourself as a personality, because then you get into things called like intellectual property, which can be huge when it comes to talking about contracts. And I feel like talking to Husky, I feel like that's one of the reasons why Husky stresses going over contracts so much, and it's one of the reasons why I'm very careful with contracts, is because when it comes to creating intellectual property, you never want to sign any of that away to a third party ever, unless it's like your mom or something. Like not even family. Like, I would never in my life ever sign away intellectual property deals, because I'm never going to have content that I create either being leveraged against me to negotiate for a future contract, or just up for debate ever. Like, if I leave, I'm always going to have Destiny with me. Like, that's my shit. Like, I built it, Same with TotalBiscuit. I seriously doubt that TotalBiscuit would ever sign any of first cynical Brit. I seriously doubt that there's anybody else that owns any part of that brand ever. Yeah. Same with Husky. There's nobody else, if Husky quits, that's going to take away Husky. Same with Day 9. No Day 9 dailies are going to happen without Day 9. Not even Red Bull. I bet not even to Red Bull would Sean sell his brand for that. If you're looking to build a brand for yourself, then you have to be very careful how it comes to managing contracts, because intellectual property becomes your livelihood. But if you just want to play games and have fun, so you're not looking to like build a brand for yourself and to do YouTube videos and stuff, I don't really think there's anything too wrong with just signing a contract and playing games. And if bad things happen, then you don't really lose much out of it. Like, the only thing they have from you are the games you played, and that's it. That's kind of how I look at it.
Good points. Definitely.
I think Steven is right on with the intellectual property. I run into this a lot, where, especially on YouTube, I don't know if live streaming is the same, but where a company will approach you and be like, yo, Husky, we got this bomb contract, them thinking I'm retarded. All you have to do is give us IP, and we're going to give you this sweet cut. And basically what that means is they're taking your baby, and they're raising it, and they're paying you for it. Like, that's no, don't ever do that.
Arbitrage, man.
Unless, in my experience, unless you're working with a company who's like, and I can't give away too many details of specifics, but if you're working with a company who wants to really add value on a new IP, so if someone comes up to me and is like, Husky, do you want to make this show with us? Maybe it'll be an animated show or something. We're going to do all the production. We're going to do all the writing. We're going to do all that. All you have to do is show up and voice it. That's the kind of situation where IP makes sense, because I can't draw. I can't do all that. I can't write stories and all that. So that's the only time it makes sense. But if you're building your own IP, definitely don't do it. And to answer the question that was just asked from John, the way that I look at it is, if you're trying to get into I would say any business. I think when people talk to me, they only think that I think about just StarCraft, which is not not the case at all. This is applicable to, again, if you're a kayaker or you're an artist or you're a singer or whatever, across the board, if you have a talent that you think you can make money at, I think the best way to do it is find a way to sustain your life now. So if you have, a family and kids and all that, then you're probably going to have to work full time and use your spare time to use whatever your craft is. And then eventually, if whatever your craft or talent is gets big enough, then you can start phasing out your full-time job, or you can quit, or you can switch over. But definitely, say you're someone working a job right now and you just want to stop and do whatever it is you love full-time. If you cannot sustain your current life for however long it takes, then you're going to be in a world of hurt, and also you're not going to be motivated to do anything because you're going to be stressed out all the time because you can't pay the bills. So I would say, whether it's being a StarCraft caster or whether it's being a professional wrestler, I don't know. The way that I do it is make sure you can sustain your life, work on whatever your talent is as much as you can, every second of your spare time, focus on it, be smart about how you market it and build your following, and as soon as you can fully switch over to being able to sustain your life while also doing that, that's when you're going to be most successful. So that's the advice I give to everyone, where some people want to jump in and write a book, but if you are taking care of kids or whatever, you have to maintain your current life or it's not going to work out.
Okay.
Well, Chanman, you mentioned something. You mentioned something earlier. Just a quick thing.
Yeah, sure.
A lot of people don't know why when they talk about why does everybody get screwed by the recording industry? What is the recording industry? That's exactly what we're talking about now, and it's exactly what Husky referenced earlier. The recording industry is basically, I've got a band together and we really want to make songs, but we can't afford professional mixing, mastering, and recording. So we're going to go to a big record label and we're going to sell them the rights to our intellectual property, all of the songs that we make, in exchange for being able to record our album. And then that's where the whole musicians getting screwed comes from, because when you think of somebody like, I'm sorry for using this example, when you think of somebody like Nickelback, the band itself and the singer, they don't actually own any of the songs that they make. If they leave their label, the songs are owned by the label. There might be something worked out on the contract where they get a percentage of
songwriting or something,
money afterwards, but it's not like they can go around and they can't go around and just perform those songs and sell tickets and stuff to them, because they've actually created property and content that is now owned by somebody that's not them. Selling intellectual property is why so many people say things like, wow, the recording industry sues you. It's because you sell your intellectual property that you create for that big upfront payment of getting into a recording studio, getting a big cash down to your current job,
and that's why we live in really exciting times, and I think it's something for everyone to keep in mind, whether it's eSports or YouTube or whatever it is you're doing. Like my friend Kurt Hugo Schneider, his channel has 500 million views, and he did that all on his own. He's self-trained in every single way. He doesn't even need a record label at this point. In fact, signing with a record label wouldn't even help him out. And if he did go to sign with a record label company, you can't get strong-armed by them. And so that's one thing to keep in mind, is it's not necessarily about signing something right away, because in so many forms of entertainment, you can actually do the majority of what record labels do, or whatever, entertainment, Hollywood. You can do the majority of that on your own. My fancy camera, I don't have it here, it was $1,000, which sounds like a lot, but imagine how much that would have cost a decade ago trying to get that. And that's where Hollywood screwed over a lot of people. And so it's definitely really, really exciting times, and that's why things change every 6 months, and why I'd advise against signing stuff right away, because really the only thing record labels can do for you right now is pay radio stations to play your songs, and that's still something that the average person can't afford. But someone like Kurt, he's very talented, he's not owned by anybody, and that
I don't actually know
Kurt's one of thousands of musicians out there making a living on YouTube. Kurt's one of the most successful ones, but there are thousands of YouTube musicians making a living right now, which could never have made.
Or MySpace.
Well, MySpace.
I can't believe MySpace is still around.
But, all right, one more question, guys, and we'll kind of round it off. And this is kind of a complex question. I kind of wanted to work in something also. It's a question by Ian Kaczynski. He says he's a frequent member of Steven's chat room and the guest of the stream. I have a question about exactly what the community can do to discourage and punish companies who act unprofessionally and unethically. And so that's his question, and I kind of wanted to preface it a little bit with, this situation is not one of those pitchfork. It's not the type that we've seen in the past where I would totally discourage. This is an issue where Steven laid out the facts, laid out he was screwed, and it was even, I think, even supported by a ton of other people coming out and basically, talking about the same story. So, so I guess, I just want to preface with that. So to answer his question, what do you guys think? I mean, is there anything that the community can do or public opinion can do to really, really help in this situation? I mean, should we not use Own3d? Just throwing something out there, or I mean, should we just leave it alone and things just work itself out after a while?
I mean, I think that every situation is so different because this can be applied, like when I used to work at a fast food restaurant. Like, there are ways to deal with issues of how you're being treated on the lowest levels. I can't imagine a job much lower than working fast food. Whereas now for me, the way I can stick it to companies personally is I built up a large network and I can keep companies in check because I have like the power of TGS and I'm friends with TotalBiscuit and Day 9 and Yogscast and like tons of big channels, and we can keep people in line on that level. So I would say it's more about what the situation is. Like Destiny's approach I think was a good one in that he was very concise and all that, and that was a medium that was really good for him to help keep companies in check. I definitely don't think like if a personality says a slur on his channel that we need to go message everyone associated with them and try and burn it to the ground, because that hurts esports as a whole. Like that's not punishing anyone but yourself. Yeah. Like that doesn't do any good. So I would say, I mean, it really depends on each person's situation. Like I think Dimaga, I mean, his situation is completely different where he's a player. So how do you get your team to treat you correctly? And it's kind of complicated because it's so, I don't know, it's so diverse.
So is the answer then to go to the press, the journalists in our esports? I mean, we spent so much this, early this week, and including our show on Tuesday with Slasher, talking about just esports journalism and reporting team news and crap like that, and this was basically brewing underneath everything the whole time. I mean, it's the best medium maybe to just go and go to like an ESFI or go to a Slasher or go to a Cadred and report, just kind of, report this kind of thing? I mean, is that a good solution?
I think I think it's something that you just need more eyes on the products, like in StarCraft 2, whatever in esports. Like there just needs to be more people watching and more money flowing through it before things start to get really better. Like you can pressure companies and whatnot, but as long as things are as desperate as they are now, like for a hypothetical example and a real example, like let's say that there was like people got paid to masturbate, okay? So
oh boy,
I'd be
you
rich.
get paid.
All right, I can't wait for this one. Okay.
No. But I'm saying let's say that let's say there's like a team of masturbators, and one of the guys like loses his contract and gets screwed over, and now that they only want to offer like $40 a month or whatever, like, do you see what I mean? Though there'd be like thousands of guys in line to sign up and do that job, like to get paid to masturbate. Like, how many people would love to sign up and do that? Like video games are the exact same way, For a real example, if you ever want to hear horror stories of working with stuff, like just some of the stuff that I've read about working in the actual video game industry, like in terms of video game design and video game production, like all of the stuff that goes into actually making video games, like the stories, like the 80 to 90 to like 100-hour work weeks that people do as they start pushing deadlines and stuff is crazy. And the pay in that industry isn't like outscaling the pay in equal jobs either, in equivalent jobs. But the thing is, there's like, if somebody drops dead or somebody decides that they're fed up with it, there's like 1,000 people in line behind them because holy crap, I want a job making video games, I think that right now esports is still at that part where we all really want it to be a really big thing where we're signing these $1 million contracts and everything, but in reality, like the small guys that do my local radio station in Omaha, Nebraska have more listeners than people watching, the global Star League finals. And until those numbers really start to change, I think it's really hard to pressure companies to act like they're in a much larger industry than they actually are, in my opinion. Yeah.
I mean, but wouldn't they want to avoid this situation? Isn't this a pure mess?
All you want to do is you want to make as much money in the shortest amount of time as possible and fuck everything else. That's a really negative answer, but that's how most people are going to come into it, and that's how you have to expect most people are going to come into it. Look at this guy. Look at this guy on Reddit. I wish I saved the threads. This guy like screwed over another StarCraft team, and he'd been involved in like 4 or 5 different scandals before, and like that's like the second time that I've heard of that happening with somebody. And like you think like, how can that happen? How can that happen? Well, it's esports. You've got millions of guys, millions of kids that would love to get on a team and play professionally for $50 a month, they would do it. They would stand up and do it. And as long as you have a pretty much no barriers to entry, right? You just need a computer and an internet, which most first world people can afford. As long as you have that barrier to entry out of the way, you've got like millions of kids behind that door that would play games for $50 a month. As long as that market exists, there's no reason for a company to act right or to act decent, because if they don't, then whatever, they make a quick buck and then they disappear.
Yeah, but you're talking to okay, so there's skill discrepancy in all these players. Okay, it's not like my kids can go and just start playing professionally like right now, like try to be picked up by a team. I mean, there's skill. I mean,
but for the amount of hours, for instance, somebody that works in baseball, somebody that's on the Yankees, probably practices about as much as some of these Korean pro gamers. Look at the discrepancy of income there, though. Or look at the B teamers on NFL teams or whatever, and compare their contracts to the B teamers on Korean pro teams. Let me give you a hint: they don't have contracts, they don't get paid money. So. Right. It's like just the amount of people. But then look at the difference in the industry. How many people watch the Super Bowl compared to how many people watch the GSL? They have so many more viewers, that they have sponsors sending so much more money into that organization, that the competition is cutthroat. Like, that's an industry where a player can look at a football team and say, "Fuck you, you're not paying me enough. I'm going somewhere else." Nobody in esports can do that right now, though. Like, look at a player who's deemed toxic like myself, or even somebody like Naniwa. If somebody were to go up to Naniwa and say, "I'm going to offer you $4,000 a month," like, Naniwa kind of can't just say, like, "Fuck you, I'm going to go somewhere else," unless he's getting like a really shitty offer and he wants to hold out for it, because there's just so few eyes on something that we're trying to hype up so much that it's just in a really awkward place,
Yeah, it's growing. I mean, the industry is growing. I mean, I agree with some of it and disagree with some of it, but sorry, by the way, Slasher just messaged me, and he's working on a piece on 3D right now.
Is he really?
But it would be nice if it was before all this. But
Chris, it should have been years ago. Like I said earlier in the show, and what Destiny is alluding to is that this has been going on, and they're just going to continue to do it until mindsets change. And it has been going on for years, and we just didn't stand up and say anything. I mean, you ask Paul, who's on the show as a co-host. You ask Marcus, yep. DJ Wheat. You ask Slasher. You ask all these guys that have been around. You ask Scoots. Guys that have been around the industry for a long time. They all tell you they've dealt with this. They've seen it happen. It's been going on forever. And in a sense, it may be partly our fault, even though we said things. We didn't have the format or the platform like we do right now to share it with 5,000 people that are tuning in. Before, it was like, "Hey, did you hear what this team did?" or "They screwed over this," or it was on forums. And now we have an opportunity, I think, to share it more. So, I can't put all the blame on us old guys, but I think some of it has to come from us, because we sat around, we didn't do anything.
All right, fellas. Well, why don't we start to wrap this up? I think it's been an amazing show, and I really, really happy that we got a chance to talk about all these topics, and pretty thoroughly too. So, why don't we do some thank you shout-outs? Actually, Mike, you want to start?
Sure, I guess.
I always surprise, man. The first person I always pick is always like just totally broadside with it. And maybe me and you switch to the order next time, but.
No, I'll just say, honestly, thanks for having me on the show. I literally, for those of you who don't know, I messaged Chris 5 minutes before he went live because I had just woken up and was going through my emails, and I'm like, "Oh, this lined up." So thanks for getting me super last minute. That's why I'm kind of jankily over in the corner of the screen. If you want to follow me, I honestly have the most fun on my second channel. It's just youtube.com/Husky. I think the majority of people already know my main channel. But you get to watch me be terrible at video games, which is always a plus. And thanks for everyone for... in the chat and in the stream for listening to my ramblings, because I talk a lot sometimes.
All right, Dima, you up? Any shout-outs, Dima?
Yeah, I just still want to wish, like, at eSports scene we had much more honest people who didn't lie to other people. It will be much more easy to work with. And still want to thanks to Team MTW, who make a lot of stuff for me. And follow me at Twitter at Dimaga.
Sponsors.
And thanks, of course.
Teams, pick up this guy.
That's what I was just going to say. Everyone should be following him and looking to pick him up.
He's a great player, streams all the time. His casting's even good at Home Story. I mean, Jesus.
Thanks.
Steven, what's up? Shoutouts?
Shout out to my website at destiny.gg. Shout out to Phoenix. Those guys are cool. Although I think they're waiting on new product orders because we sold everything out last time. But otherwise, if you like my Twitter or anything like that, just go to destiny.gg, and then all the links are at the top. Shout out to Chanman for being cool.
John, your turn.
I want to shout out to the guys that are on this show, and Husky, I think this is maybe only the second time I've met you. It's nice to talk with you again. But you said a lot of things that I think were definitely pertinent to the conversation, but more importantly, you offered solutions. And I think everyone should definitely look to look for you to put out information and to share your thoughts and insights and contracts and getting started in esports and what the next steps might be. So I think it's really important that that you guys follow everyone here. I think, including myself. I'm trying to get to 60 followers. And thanks,
John.
man.
Don't you have a site, John, that you're working on? That's
I do, and I'm
those
just
lines.
going to mention that too.
Okay.
So a lot of what we talked about today is about offering solutions. It's easy for us to sit around a kind of a round table or whatever we want to call this little, setup that we have, and rant and rave about the things that have happened in the past, about the things that are happening now, and about how horrible we think that it's going to be in the future, and the bubble's going to burst, blah blah blah. Yeah, it's like a big circle jerk. Somebody just put in the chat, but it's not really a circle jerk because each one of us are offering solutions or have done something in a way. I mean, we wouldn't be having this conversation if Steven hadn't shared it, and if we didn't share it, results might not happen. And for Husky to do the things that he's doing and for what he's gone through and then to turn around and share it. So I've started to put together a website called eSports Solutions, and the website is all about solutions and resources. You'll be able to go to the website, and if you need a caster for an event, there will be a list of casters. If you need to understand what to look for in a contract, if you need to find people in the industry that can help you with stream production, or photographers, which is a whole other story we should talk about sometime.
Soon we'll be doing an episode.
Yeah,
on that.
I mean, a bunch of photographers here take great pictures and aren't getting credit for it. Where can just the industry go to find solutions for problems or issues that they might want resolved? And I hope that's what my website, that hopefully in the next 5 weeks will be created, eSports Solutions. I don't even have the domain is created, but I don't have the site's being worked on. I have a logo, that's good. But anyway, so just if you want to find out more about that, you can follow me at @ES_John Clark, and I'll definitely try to keep updates going. So.
As for me, shout-outs, big, huge thanks to all of you guys for being on the show. Particularly, obviously, Steven and Dimaga for being scheduled and working with me with that. And then, obviously, Mike just jumping on last minute. I think a lot of the things we talked about, I think hopefully will be useful for a lot of players and folks. I know there are a lot of players, a lot of personalities in the community that were watching. So, big thanks to all the viewers, too. But, yeah, the subject matter, I think it's just needs to be talked about. And Steven, again, big thanks for you releasing that post and doing that, because that's what initiated all of this. I feel like it shouldn't have to always be basically Steven initiating all these conversations we have. Hopefully more folks will come out whenever they're getting having issues, having problems, and we can hear their voice a little bit more as the community and that sort of thing, and maybe help them out, right? But yeah, so for those of you that normally tune in Climbing the Ladder, it's not on Fridays typically, it's on Tuesdays. So our next episode, actually our next episode might be Monday, so it's either going to be Monday or Tuesday. I'll let you guys know. We'll either have Jenna Bain on, or we're going to have I think it's either that or Kevin Lynn. I'm trying to figure out right now. So one of those guys will be on next week, so it should be a good show. VOD for this will be up probably about 30-40 minutes after this. I'll probably upload it immediately after. And I think that's going to be about it. John, am I missing anything? Oh, Red Eye will be back soon. Red Eye's internet, oh man, internet is just terrible in Germany right now. So hopefully he will be back very soon. And one last thing, I've been remiss in the past, and it's photos I've used for this episode. Big thanks to aquaticgaming.com and ESL for the photos I used. And that's going to be about it. So we will see you.
Just for those that were asking, I will post. I will make a tweet with an with a link to the logo if people are interested in seeing the logo. But I'll try to get
Okay.
updates as soon as possible.
All right, awesome. All right, guys, we'll see you next week. See ya.
Peace.
Peace out.
We're not supposed to say peace.
Oh yeah, shit.